This boy ended up in a juvenile detention center, a place that was like a jungle ruled by bullies. Even though he was beaten every day, his nightmare had only just begun. He was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. In less than a month, he lost everything in his life. His girlfriend was hit by truck Kun right in front of the detention center. That day, his mind fell into darkness. Before, he was beaten and forced to serve others. But now, this prison was about to meet its king. Lying on the floor, the boy remembers that violence has always been a part of his life. Ever since he was a child, he would get beaten by his own father for any reason. Now, after so much suffering, violence has become completely natural to him. Screaming in desperation, he finds himself in a state of pure panic with no escape. Held by 2 inmates, he begs the man to stop what he's about to do. He then asks why they don't just beat him already, finding all of this unnecessary. From a distance, another man asks if he's thinking of giving up now. Jung-ho Kim says he thought the boy was desperate for money as he readies the rubber band. He continued, saying the boy has done all sorts of things for mere coins in here. He remembers shoveling snow in the yard for a very small amount of money. Another time, he even warmed up shoes for the other inmates for just a few coins. He even went as far as acting like a dog to get some change from the seniors. Then, Seong-ho offers him more money to become a human target for them. With the rubber band in his mouth, he ends up agreeing to the proposal. Inside the juvenile detention center, you could find the worst kinds of criminals. It was a lawless place. One of them tells him to close his eyes so he doesn't go blind. But at the moment of the shot, the rubber band snaps unexpectedly. Angry, he curses as the coin flies far off, missing the target by a long shot. After hitting the wall, the coin ends up falling towards the cell's bathroom. To everyone's bad luck, it lands right inside the toilet. Annoyed, he asks if anyone has another rubber band, but no one can find one nearby. One of the guys then tells Ju-young that it's his lucky day. Telling him to go get his coin, the boy runs off, grateful for his freedom. But Sung-ho stops him, saying it's too easy, and changes his mind. Standing in front of the toilet, he's ordered to get the coin with his mouth. At the bottom of the water, the coin sits as he stares at what he has to do. One of them comments on how disgusting the situation is, saying they used the toilet during the night. Without a second thought, he plunges his face into the water to get the coin. Seeing this, the other inmates are completely shocked by his unexpected action. Yelling that he actually did it, they all tell him to stay away because of the smell. Mocking his actions, one of them says it's crazy to do that for spare change. By collecting coins like this, he was getting closer and closer to his big goal. With a smile, he says he managed to save up 50,000 won, surprising everyone. Back in the cell, Seong-ho tells his cellmate it's time for the yard. Telling him not to rush, the leader says the boy is stinking up the place. As they walk, the inmates comment that he sold his dignity for cheap. Alone in the bathroom, everyone recalls the reason he was imprisoned there. Ju-young-cha was actually sentenced to 3 years for attempted murder. One of them says he's seen murderers beg, but questions his obsession with money. Just then, a guard bangs on the bars and announces that prisoner 7199 has a visitor. Receiving the news, he wonders who could have come to visit him in a place like this. Arriving at the visitation room, he prepares to see who is waiting for him. On the other side of the glass, a girl asks if he has lost weight. She worries, asking if he's not eating or if he's getting beaten in there. Being his childhood friend, she says he should have attacked first without hesitation. He asks why she visits him so much, commenting on the price of the bus ticket. Banging on the glass, she yells, asking if he thinks she doesn't have money. Showing him some jars, she asks why he sent them and where the money came from. Surprised, he says it was for her to keep, but she refuses the suspicious money. He then asks if she's talking about the promise they made before. She confirms, referring to their promise to move to Seoul together after school. Telling him to take care, she says she will look after all the money. At that moment, the visiting time ends, and they are interrupted by the guard. As she's leaving, she asks him to focus on getting released from that place soon. She also makes him promise not to overdo it and to take care of himself in there. The visitation room window then closes, ending the conversation between them. Seen from above, he is left alone in the room after his friend leaves. Remembering their promise, he remains determined to fulfill their agreement. Shifting to a flashback, he apologizes to Daeon in front of a hospital. Sitting next to her, he says it was all because of his father. Calling his father a monster, he saw his friend all bruised up in front of him. She then asks if he's really worried about her in this whole situation. Angrily, she shoves him against the wall, telling him he shouldn't worry. Yelling, she tells him to worry about himself, calling him an idiot. She tells him that his father is in a coma from the blow he received. He replies that it's fine, considering all the years of abuse he suffered. With some confidence, he says his punishment shouldn't be that severe. Moving to the courtroom, a judge begins to read the sentence for the defendant, Ju-young-cha. To his amazement, the judge sentences him to 3 years in prison. In disbelief, he questions being imprisoned for fighting back against the father who abused him his whole life. As he's being led away by the guards, she tells him not to skip any meals in there. Worried, she yells for him to let her know if anyone tries to mess with him. Looking back, he hears her asking him to promise he'll take care of himself. Taken inside, he just lowers his head, not answering his friend. Back in the cell, a senior inmate tells him he can get out sooner if he just obeys. Sitting in his cell, he thinks it's only 3 years, and that time will fly by. Looking at a photo, he convinces himself he can endure the sentence until the end. In the photo, he was with his friend on a happy day at school. Just then, Seong-ho Kim comes up from behind, surprising the boy who was distracted by the photo. Turning him around abruptly, Seong-ho Kim glares at him with a menacing look. He then asks if the girl in the photo is his girlfriend, but Ju-young denies it. With a smile, the man tells him to hand over the photo so he can get a better look. Refusing the request, he says that photo is very special to him. Seong-ho then asks if he really had the nerve to say no to him. Asking if he's been too nice, he prepares to strike the boy. He then takes a heavy blow, getting thrown to the side with the force. Changing scenes, a guard announces that cell 36 has a new inmate. Confused, the cell leader says he wasn't aware of any newcomers. At that moment, a new prisoner enters the cell with a very serious look. As he leaves, the guard tells the newcomer to keep his head down, because he'll be watching him. One of the inmates says he knows the new guy, completely surprised by his arrival. Pointing at the newcomer, he shouts that the guy killed 7 bullies from his school. Gyeom-ma was sentenced to 20 years for the murder of 7 people, the maximum penalty. As the door closes, everyone in the cell stares at the newly arrived prisoner. Ju-young is shocked, wondering if he really took the lives of 7 people. Seeing the situation, Seong-ho says there is absolutely nothing for them to fear. He continues, saying that even if he killed 7, any of them could take him on. Approaching him, he comments that if looks could kill, the new guy would indeed look like a murderer. Telling him they'll get along fine, he says the newcomer just needs to keep his ego in check. Extending his hand, he offers a handshake to the new inmate who just watches him. Gyeom-ma remains silent for a moment, simply ignoring the senior's gesture. Turning his back, he simply turns and starts to walk away from Seong-ho. Muttering, the leader says he was just trying to be nice but was completely ignored. Yelling for him to come back, Seong-ho charges forward to land a blow from behind. Dodging the attack, Seong-ho is left stunned. Everyone is shocked, unable to believe what they just witnessed. Seong-ho doesn't understand how he managed to dodge his attack so quickly. Without hesitation, the newcomer counters with a precise blow, catching the senior off guard. Impressed, Ju-young observes the speed and strength of the new inmate. He then realizes that there is definitely something very different about this new prisoner. After all, he was responsible for the deaths of 7 people. But in an instant, the newcomer takes a hit. Unable to defend in time, hit squarely, he is thrown back by the powerful impact. Completely shocked, Ju-young can't understand how the situation turned so quickly. Landing several blows, Seong-ho yells that he can't challenge the leader in here. He continues, saying that everyone must obey him, no matter what they did before. Ju-young then thinks to himself that he thought the new guy was a good fighter. Taking multiple hits, the newcomer is beaten down with no chance to defend himself. Despite his reputation, he can't land a single blow on his opponent. In the end, he is left kneeling, completely defeated after the confrontation with the leader. After one last hit, Seong-ho orders him to go get some water for him immediately. Despite the order, Gyeom-ma refuses to do anything for the leader. Because of this, he gets beaten by the other inmates but remains very stubborn. Ju-young just watches the scene, seeing that the new guy hasn't learned his place yet. Doing push-ups, he complains about not getting a normal newcomer like the others. During the night in the cell, all the inmates were finally asleep in their beds. Already lying down, Gyeom-ma calls out to his cellmate to talk for a bit. He asks if Ju-young is stupid, telling him his life would be easier if he just obeyed. He says the leader is the strongest, which is why everyone stays quiet and follows orders. Ju-young tries to offer some advice, but the newcomer cuts him off before he can finish. The new guy then asks if he has always been a coward his whole life. The sudden question leaves Ju-young speechless, not knowing what to say. Turning to his side, Gyeom-ma mutters that he was just trying to help his cellmate. To Ju-young, the new guy could call him whatever he wanted. He didn't care. Remembering the past, he reaffirms that he will continue to follow his own path. Recalling the beatings, he remembered all the injuries he had ever suffered. For him, he had to live like a coward for now, enduring everything in silence. This would be his life until he could finally get out of that place for good. Changing scenes, his friend was complaining about the cold while waiting for the light to change. She remembered that Ju-young was very thin the last time she saw him. Hugging the lunchbox, she believed he would like to get some food from the outside. Even if he didn't admit it, she knew he was going through a tough time. Seeing the green light, she just hoped he was eating properly in there. Clutching the bag, she was sure he would love this simple meal. Crossing the street, she continued on her way to visit her friend in prison. Suddenly, a truck appears at high speed, coming right at her. Terrified, she freezes as she sees the lights rapidly approaching. In an instant, she is hit hard by the truck. which doesn't stop. Meanwhile, in the cell, Ju-young was asleep, unaware that she had been run over. On the street, the food she had carried with such care is scattered everywhere. The next day, back at the detention center, the routine continued as usual. An officer approaches Ju-young, apologizing profusely and very seriously. Confused, he asks why, and the man tells him about the truck accident. Hesitantly, the officer prepares to tell him that the victim was someone he knew. Processing the information, his eyes widen in pure shock and complete despair. The terrible news leaves him paralyzed, unable to believe what he just heard. Back in the cell, he sits on the floor, completely zoned out. A cellmate watches him, wondering what happened to make him like this. Seong-ho then storms in yelling, saying he didn't clean the bathroom as ordered. Angrily, he walks towards him, asking if he was asking for a beating. Seeing his reaction, he stops, noticing the boy isn't responding to his provocations. He then asks why the hell he's staring at the photo of his crush. One of the inmates points out that the girl in the accident was the same one from the photo. Realizing everything, he questions why Ju-young lied, saying she was his girlfriend. Grabbing the photo, Seong-ho says that poor Ju-young is now finally single again. Commenting that she was pretty, he says she was way out of his league. Asking if anyone wants it, he starts auctioning off the photo for 500 won. As the bids increase, Ju-young offers 1,000 won to try and get the photo back. Then an inmate jokes about going out with her, but Seong-ho scoffs, asking how he would do that. With a smile, he says he would have done a lot more than just go out with her. Calling him a psycho, the other inmates ask if he wants to extend his sentence. With his head down, Ju-young remains quiet, listening to all the taunts. In the corner of the cell, Guillaume sits and watches the whole commotion. He continues to stare at the group, analyzing the behavior of each inmate. Remembering their conversation, he had asked if Ju-young had always been a coward his whole life. The question had surprised Ju-young, who didn't know what to say to the newcomer. Back in the present, the new guy remains silent, just observing the scene unfold. Ju-young then says that the photo is now very valuable, surprising Guillaume with his comment. Seong-ho says he might just keep it, preparing to strike the boy, but Ju-young lands a solid punch, completely surprising the cell leader. The impact sends Seong-ho flying to the cell floor. With his head down, he stands still as the dust from the attack slowly settles. Seeing this, the other inmates are completely shocked by his unexpected action. Lying on the floor, Seong-ho cries out in pain, not understanding how he got hit like that. Then he lifts his face and glares at Guillaume, who was watching from a distance. Shifting to the workshop, the inmates were doing their manual labor like any other day. Just then, Ju-young approaches and asks Guillaume not to tell anyone what he's about to say. He reveals that his father is actually the right-hand man of a major gangster. Telling him about his past, he says he was beaten by his father ever since he was a child. He continues, saying he had no choice but to endure it because he was his father. But he pauses, preparing to tell him what made him fight back. He then explains that one time he ended up losing control of the whole situation. Guillaume listens attentively to the story, understanding the reason for his imprisonment. It was the day his father hurt his friend for no reason at all. Taking the hit, Seong-ho curses the boy, feeling the strong impact on his face. Yelling at the others, he orders all his buddies to grab Ju-young immediately. But he realizes he gained one thing from the years of abuse from his father. Fighting against everyone, he shows that over time, he had learned how to fight. With a clenched fist, he faces the inmates, ready for whatever comes next. From a distance, Guillaume just watches the fight, analyzing every move from both sides. Lying on the floor, he apologizes to Ju-young, seeing all the defeated inmates around him. Desperate, Seong-ho offers money, asking how much he needs to stop the beating. With a smile, Ju-young says that the money might have been tempting at another time, but now, he says he doesn't need it anymore, and then he starts landing multiple blows on the senior without any mercy. With a final punch, he hits the senior's face with great force, and Ju-young says he no longer has any reason to leave this place. Powerless, Seong-ho just takes the beating, unable to defend himself from the blows. With his fist raised, he yells that he has no reason to hold back anymore. In a flashback, his father ordered him to follow in his footsteps and join the gang. Making him repeat the exercises, his father watched him without any pity or hesitation. He struggled to get up from the floor after the heavy, exhausting training. Thrown to the ground, he would hear his father tell him to try again and again. Down once more, all he could hear was his father's endless screaming. Beaten every day, he was forced to train until he couldn't stand anymore. Even on the ground, his father would ask if that was all he could do. He always said the boy needed to become stronger for what was to come. Only then could he finally earn the huge dragon tattoo on his back. Seeing his anger, his father said he looked alive for the first time in years. Channeling his rage, he learned to aim for the eyes of the dragon that haunted him. Back in the cell, the door is thrown open by the prison guards. The guards then shout, asking what the hell is going on inside the cell. Stunned, one of them is left speechless by the scene before him. In the middle of the room, Ju-young stood surrounded by the bodies of the other inmates. When questioned by the guard, he confirms he was responsible for the whole mess. With a bruised face, he takes the blame, saying he was the one who did it. Transferred to solitary confinement, he now spent his days completely alone in his cell. Sitting on the floor, he looked at the photo he had cherished so much. Remembering the past, he recalled an important conversation with his friend Diane. In a flashback, she was saying how terrible it was what had happened to him. She then asked if his father had beaten him right before the first day of school. Worried, she couldn't believe that had actually happened to him. In front of the new school, the two were getting ready for their first day. Even though he said he was used to it, she yelled that it wasn't normal at all. Angry, she says she's going to have a talk with him, but he reminds her of the promise. Grabbing her arm, he says she promised she would never come to his house. He goes on, saying if she broke it, he'd call her a loser forever. Ashamed, he says that if he had a real home, he would welcome her with open arms. Then she mentions Seoul, leaving him completely confused by what she said. She then reveals that's where she's going to live after finishing high school. Saying she's tired of living at the orphanage, she can't stand this small neighborhood anymore. Full of plans, she says she'll go to college, get a job, and buy everything. He then comments that he didn't know she was so materialistic, but she confirms she always has been. Hearing about Seoul, he realizes that if Daeon leaves, he'll be completely alone. The thought of being alone leaves him completely stunned, not knowing what to do. Turning to him, she asks if he'll go with her, surprising him. Holding out her pinky, she asks him to make a promise with her right there. The two then seal the promise, agreeing to go to the new city together. Jokingly, she warns him that if he breaks the promise, she'll call him a loser. Just then, a photographer asks if they're a couple and if they want to take a picture. Getting ready for the shot, the man starts the countdown to take the picture. And that's how the photo he cherished so much in prison was taken. Back in the present, the solitary confinement hallway showed his complete isolation. The cell door then closes, locking Juyong alone with his memories. Furious, he punches the wall, feeling guilty for his friend's loss. He then thinks that she wouldn't have been there if she wasn't coming to visit him. Unleashing his anger, he hits the wall with a blow full of force and hatred. Continuing the blows, he can't stop blaming himself for the accident. With a final strike, he hits the wall, venting all his frustration and pain. Seeing his bruised hand, he remembers she's gone forever because of him. Looking at the photo on the floor, he cries, realizing it all happened because of him. Just then, a guard knocks on the door, calling for prisoner 7199. The guard says he's sorry for his loss, but stops him from hurting himself any further. He then tells Juyong he's done enough and doesn't need to do this anymore. Telling him to calm down, the guard says he hasn't eaten anything since yesterday. Even as the guard says life goes on, Juyong sits on the floor, heartbroken and sad. On the floor, he just apologizes, feeling guilty for his friend's loss. Alone in his cell, he keeps apologizing, unable to accept the situation. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Guillaume Ma was eating, watching the other prisoners' routine. One of the inmates asks if Guillaume Ma heard about what happened recently in the prison. Another prisoner says Juyong was sent to solitary for beating up everyone in his cell. He goes on to explain the fight started because of his girlfriend who died in the accident. The inmates then comment that he did the right thing, defending his girl's honor. Just then, a man approaches their table, getting everyone's attention. The prisoner laughs, commenting that it looks like they're getting a new leader around here. But the man attacks him, slamming his face hard into the food tray. One of the inmates then says it looks like he was having a lot of fun. With a smile, the man looks at them, introducing himself as Jongchan Park. He asks if the inmate wants to share the fun, but glares at him angrily. Grabbing his head, he asks if he thinks it's funny that someone got beaten up by the leader. With a challenging look, he prepares to ask the group a question. He then asks if any of them would like to try doing the same to him. Scared, everyone at the table falls silent, not daring to answer the new inmate. Afraid, they shout no, saying they would never dare to do such a thing. Cynically, Jongchun asks if the boy is okay, lifting his face with his hand. With a dirty face, the inmate replies that he's fine and apologizes for his stupidity. With a smile on his face, Jongchan seems pleased with the prisoner's submission. Turning to the table, he asks for the name of the boy from solitary. Guillaume Ma then stares at him, hearing Juyong Cha's name mentioned in the cafeteria. A week later, Juyong is finally released from his solitary cell. The guard informs him that Seong Ho is still in the hospital from all the injuries. He continues, saying he only let him out because he knew the whole story behind it. With a warning, the guard tells him to keep his head down and stay out of trouble. Back in his cell, he finds Guillaume Ma sitting, as if he were waiting for him. The newbie then comes in, locking the door and staring at Juyong with a serious look. The two then face off, with Guillaume Ma saying that no one hits the leader. He continues, saying they will definitely get revenge for what happened to Seong Ho. Worried, The newbie curses, knowing the situation could get even worse for them. Approaching, the newbie calls him over, getting ready for another talk. One of the inmates asks if he's feeling better, happy about his return. Ma watches from a distance the warm welcome the new leader was receiving. Surrounded by the others, the inmates say solitary must have been horrible for him. They then offer him a massage, water, and anything else he needed to feel better. Sitting down, Ma sighs, realizing something important about the place he was in. Writing in his notebook, he jots down the date and his new thoughts on the prison. He thinks that in school, people care about power, looks, and grades. But in the Juvenile Detention Center, the only thing that really matters is power. In the prison yard, the inmates paced back and forth aimlessly. Ju-young then approaches Ma, who was reading a book while leaning against the fence. He then questions him, asking why he did that on the day of the fight. With his head down, he remembers his intention in that moment of pure rage. He then reveals that on that day, he was going to take Seung-ho's life without a second thought. But Ma stopped him, placing a hand on his fist, holding him back from making a mistake. He then asks why he did it, wanting to understand his true intentions. Remembering his past, he says the newbie has also killed 7 people. Without answering, Ma just stares at him with a serious, thoughtful expression. Cutting to a flashback, a man's bruised hand is seen lying limp. Breathing heavily, he prepared to get up and continue the fight. In the classroom, an overturned chair showed the aftermath of a huge brawl. He then asked why they did it, surrounded by the bullies' bodies. Hurt, all he could ask was why all of this was happening to him. Getting ready to answer, he begins to explain the reason for his actions. Just then, a new inmate approaches, asking which one of them is Ju-young Cha. With a smile, he says Ju-young is much smaller than he imagined. He questions how he beat Seung-ho, but says he was always pretty weak. Sizing up the boy, he seems to be thinking about something very specific. Jong-chan then asks why the hell he decided to rebel against the former leader. He continues, asking if the boy wanted to become the new leader that badly. With a serious look, he tells the guy to get lost, not caring what he thinks. The inmate then stares back at him with a look of mockery and superiority. With a smirk on his face, he doesn't like the newcomer's attitude. Getting closer, he starts to provoke Ju-young with a question about his mother. He then asks if his mother never taught him any manners. Angry, he gets ready to attack, saying he hates it when people don't know their place. With a smile, he says that since Seung-ho was weak, he'll take over. He starts landing multiple hits, giving Ju-young no chance to defend himself. He then yells that he'll teach him what happens when a dog bites its master, but a guard shows up, breaking up the fight before things get any worse. Seeing the guard, Jung-chan curses, realizing he's been caught in the act. At that moment, the guard approaches, pretending he didn't see anything. Staring at Ma, he says the boy probably doesn't know the prison rules. He then explains that leaders can beat up whoever they want to maintain order. With a shove, Jung-chan tells him to react and fight back against his attacks. While hitting him, he taunts him, telling him to do the same thing he did to Seung-ho. Ma then calls him a murderer, questioning why he wasn't reacting. Taking the hit, he's thrown against the fence, falling to the ground without any reaction. The inmate asks why he's not doing anything, wondering if he's fallen asleep. Adjusting his sleeve, he says he prefers it when things are a little tougher. With a smile, he says he likes it when his prey struggles and fights back. With a serious look, Ju-young remembers his own father's dragon tattoo. He recalls the abuse he suffered and how helpless and weak he felt. The memories bring back the fear and anger he felt at that moment. He then remembers his father, the man who taught him how to fight. Head down, he says the boy didn't seem so scared when he was talking. Mockingly, he asks if the boy's attitude is because of the girl. Getting ready to attack, he says he heard she was hit by a truck, but he's interrupted by a blow, unable to finish his taunt. Being held, he cries out in pain from his opponent's strike. With a quick move, he lands a powerful blow, throwing his rival back. Throwing his body, the impact pins him hard against the fence. With a foot on his face, the man curses, unable to get up from the ground. Standing over him, he glares and tells him to repeat what he just said. Confused, the inmate asks what the hell he is, surprised by the reaction. Smashing his head again, he continues the assault, giving him no chance to defend himself. Pinned to the fence, he screams for him to let go, but he's completely ignored. With another blow, he smashes his rival's face hard against the fence. Grabbing his arm, Ju-young prepares for his next attack. Twisting the tattooed arm, he increases the pressure, causing his rival more pain. Screaming, the man begs him to stop, asking what he's doing. With a snap, he breaks his opponent's arm, finishing his move. Hearing the scream of pain, Ma watches the scene with a serious expression. With multiple blows, he keeps attacking his rival, not stopping for a second. Screaming in pain, the man is pressed against the fence, unable to defend himself. With his rival on the ground, he observes the result of all his rage. Staring into space, he prepares to attack his opponent again. In a flashback, 2 women were talking about how the boy's father was a famous gangster. Watching him from a distance, They judged him as the biggest problem in the whole neighborhood. With a bruised face, he always kept his head down, avoiding any trouble. Arriving home, he opens the gate, bracing himself for another day of suffering. As he enters, he hears strange noises like something is being broken inside. He then hears a scream, wondering if someone was in danger in his house. Running, he recognizes the voice and wonders what was happening inside. With a look of hatred, his father glares at him, seeing that he had finally arrived. In the middle of the room, Dion was on the floor, and his father called his name. He then asked if the girl on the floor was his dear friend. Shouting her name, he runs to help, desperate about her condition. His father then explains that she broke into the house and had the audacity to confront him. She told him not to lay another finger on Juyong, and that it would be better if he just disappeared. Recalling the conversation, she threatened him, saying she'd have a talk with his father. Angrily, he says that's why he had to teach the girl a lesson. Furious, he clenches his fist, preparing to finally react to the provocations. He thinks about how he was always good at keeping his head down and avoiding trouble, but his father tells him to warn the girl that things would be different. He goes on, saying that if she ever spoke to him like that again, something would happen. That day, he remembers fallen flowers on the ground, like an omen of what was to come. The flowers on the ground reminded him of life's fragility and the imminent danger. Angrily, he threatens her, saying he'd send her to the same place as her parents. The image of his friend on the floor made him lose his mind, but he simply couldn't take all that abuse and violence anymore. At the hospital, the doctor informs him that his father is in a coma because of the attack. Unfortunately, the doctors believed his chances of regaining consciousness were practically zero. According to the doctor, it would take a miracle for him to wake up again. Hearing the news, he just stands in silence, processing his father's situation. With a clenched fist, he realizes the tattoo didn't matter anymore. Looking at his friend, he thinks that now she would finally be safe from everything. In the yard, all the prisoners were talking about the fight that had just happened. They couldn't believe Juyong had done it again to another inmate. With his rival on the ground, they realized the fight happened right after he got out of solitary. Showing his tattoo, he gets up, his arm bruised but ready to keep going. With a bruised face, Juyong stares down the other inmates, showing no remorse. As the yard time ends, all the prisoners head back to their cells. From the yard, the view of the prison shows the inmates' routine on that sunny day. From his office, a man apologized for the noise coming from outside. With a cup in his hand, he says that all the boys there are very energetic. He then says he's glad the other man is okay, mentioning his discharge from the hospital. The center's director, Chang Sok-Guan, offers to help in any way he can. With a serious look, he prepares to ask the man an important question. He then asks which prisoner he was visiting at the detention center that day. Back in the cell, all the prisoners were sitting in complete silence. With serious looks, Guillaume Ma and Juyong stare at each other in silence. Writing in his diary, Guillaume Ma jotted down his thoughts about his cellmate. He then thinks that he ended up in the same room as a complete and troubled lunatic. Just then, a guard calls him by his prisoner number, 7199. With a smile, the man tells the boy to follow him out of the cell. With a bruised face, he hears that he has a visitor waiting in the meeting room. Walking down the hall, the guard escorts him to the scheduled visit location. He then wonders who could possibly want to visit him in such an isolated place. He thinks about how his mother abandoned him, and he lost touch with his relatives. With no one in mind, he questions who the mysterious visitor could be. The guard then takes him to the director's office, leaving the boy confused. He wonders why he was being taken there instead of the visitation room. Nervously, he braces himself to find out the reason for this unexpected visit. Sitting on the couch, a man says it's been a long time since they've seen each other. Surprised, he can't believe who is standing in front of him. He then remembers his father, the man who haunted his memories. With a smile, he says he enjoyed watching him playing in the prison yard. Shocked, he wonders how his father is there when he was supposed to be in a coma. Introducing himself as Gang Ryong Cha, Juyong's father stares at him with a serious look. The boy is completely shocked, unable to believe what he's seeing. Saying he shouldn't be here, the director greets him with a smile. With a frightening look, he asks if the boy is surprised by his visit. He then reveals that his father regained consciousness, which was a miracle. With a smile, he asks if Juyong isn't relieved to see him recovered. He remembers the doctor saying the chance of recovery was almost zero. Angrily, he wonders how that was possible when there was no hope. His father says that at first he also had a hard time accepting the whole situation. He goes on to say that being attacked like that was very unexpected for him, especially since it wasn't by enemies or the police, as he had expected. The attack came from his own son, who left him in a coma at the hospital. He says that when he woke up, he was shocked to find out who put him there, but he reveals that he was actually very happy with what his son did. He continues, saying the boy finally managed to prove he was his true son. He then says he's starting to understand the feelings of a proud father. With a scary look, look, he says there's nothing in the world he wouldn't do for him. For that reason, he prepares to tell the truth behind it all. With wide eyes, Ju-young listens to the revelation, completely in shock. The father then reveals he had no choice but to take the friend's life. Terrified, she's surprised by the truck, with no time to react to the danger. Hit, she's thrown a great distance by the strong impact of the high-speed vehicle. The food she was carrying with so much care scatters all over the street. Lying on the asphalt, she is seriously injured after the terrible and unexpected accident. Struggling, she tried to stay awake, breathing with great difficulty on the ground. Approaching, a person appears and stops beside her, watching the accident scene. With her last bit of strength, she asks for help, but the man just watches her in silence. Without helping, the man just watches her, walking away and leaving her behind. Stuttering, she couldn't believe who was standing in front of her. The man she saw was Ju-young's father, standing there watching her. With a smile, he says she looks like she's seen a ghost. He then recalls how she said Ju-young would be better off without him around. He continues, saying that parents should do anything for their children, just as he will. Taking a step, he prepares to show what he is capable of. Turning his back, he seems to think about what he'll do next to the girl. He says she would never understand a father's love being an orphan. Continuing the taunt, he says she never knew her parents' love. Back in the room, he says he always thought him a weakling who wouldn't fight for anything. But that day, he saw the true potential his son was hiding inside. He then reveals that the girl was the key to unlocking all that power. With a sad look, Ju-young laments, wishing he had realized it much sooner. He then says he killed the girl to help him reach his potential. With this revelation, he explains the reason behind all his cruel actions. The director watches the scene, feeling that something was very wrong. Terrified, he screams desperately, asking for someone to grab him. With a leap, Ju-young lunges at his father, and suddenly he stops mid-attack because of the taser. With a jolt, he is electrocuted, feeling the strong charge in his body. The force of the attack throws him back, unable to react to the shock. Screaming in pain, the guards hold him down, announcing he's under control. Relieved, the director says that the situation was barely kept under control. On the floor, he screams, feeling the pain of the shock course through his body. Standing, his father asks if he wants revenge for what happened to the girl. He continues asking if his son would be happy to see him dead after all this. On the ground, he says he'll tell him the only way to finally kill him. The director then reveals that several gang members were in that same facility. He says they aren't useful now, but they could become part of the gang. With a smile, he says Ju-young needs to prove he's the best among them. His father then reveals he wants him to conquer the entire juvenile detention center. He continues, saying that way he will earn the respect of everyone in the gang, and that at some point he'll get the chance to finally attack him by surprise. He says that when he kills him, the gang's right-hand man, he'll have to suck it up and take control of the entire Sky Dragon gang. That way, he'll achieve a goal his father never could, even after trying his whole life. He says his life will finally be complete, thanks to his son and his sacrifice. With a smile, he says goodbye, leaving Ju-young with his thoughts and his plan. The director says he'll take good care of him, saying goodbye to the gang leader. Frightened, he asks what that is, but the man just stares at him. With his back turned, he walks away, leaving the director on the floor without any explanation. Clutching the taser, he asks why his father thinks he'll wait. Staring at the boy, his father just watches him in silence with a serious look. Lunging at him, he screams that his father is going to die right now. With a look of pure hatred, he charges, yelling that it all ends today. The guards and the warden watch the scene, completely shocked by what they see. A man then steps forward, landing a solid blow on Ju-young's father. He says his life will finally be complete, thanks to his son and his sacrifice. Angrily, he says he won't wait, and that his father will die today. With an embrace, the man draws near, as if comforting him in his arms. Apologizing in advance, he prepares for his next attack. He then apologizes to Mr. Cha, with a serious and determined look. With one blow, he hits Ju-young, throwing the boy to the ground with force. The guards watch the scene, not understanding what was happening in the warden's office. With Ju-young on the floor, the man says his job is to protect his father. He reveals himself, showing his face and his loyalty to the gang leader. With an effort, he tries to get up, but the man holds him down tightly. Surprised, he says it's impossible for the boy to have so much strength. Screaming, he doesn't understand how he can take it, even without the use of his arms. Approaching, the father calls him poor and foolish, watching the scene from above. He then tells the boy to take a good look around the room. Surrounded by guards, he says his son can't touch a single hair on his head. His father warns him that being hasty only leads to failure and defeat. He repeats that his son needs to become the king of that detention center first. Angrily, Ju-young grits his teeth, hating the situation he was in. With a smile, he says he'll be looking forward to their next meeting inside the prison. Calling him son, he turns and walks away, leaving the boy behind. Alone in the hallway, he crouches down, feeling the weight of his father's words. With a clenched fist, he prepares to follow the plan plan, even against his will. In the woodworking shop, all the inmates were doing their manual labor as usual. With a hammer, Guillaume Ma was working on his piece with great attention and care. A guard tells him to take it easy, as he had already hit his quota. One of the inmates comments on the rookie's skill with the hammer he was using. Another inmate says he doesn't look or act like a real killer. A boy then arrives, announcing he got the requested toolbox. Stopping, he gets confused when he sees Ju Young standing there with the toolbox in hand. With a tattooed face, the boy glares at Guillaume Ma with a very intimidating look. Surprised, Guillaume Ma doesn't understand the boy's attitude, who is staring at him for no reason. Suddenly, the boy throws the toolbox on the floor, scattering everything. He then apologizes, saying his hands slipped by accident. On the floor, a sharp nail stands out among the other tools that fell. With a smile, the boy says the whole situation is a big surprise. He then greets Guillaume Ma as if the two knew each other from somewhere. Introducing himself as Guillaume, he says he hasn't seen him since graduation. He says he saw him on the news but didn't expect to find him here. With a smile, Guillaume Ma looks back at him, confirming that he remembered him. He then says he remembered him very well and everything that happened. With a smile, the boy says there's something he really wanted to ask. Getting closer, he prepares to ask the question that was bothering him. He then asks if it's true that Guillaume Ma really killed 7 people. He says he knows what Guillaume Ma was like back in their old school days. Asking what he means, the boy says he was always a model student. Just then, the guard tells him to get back to his post and stop talking. Saying goodbye, he walks away, leaving Guillaume Ma alone with his thoughts. He then feels a pain in his hand, realizing he got hurt by the tools. With his hand bleeding, he remembers the words and taunts of his old classmate. At night in the cell, all the inmates gathered for another night in prison. Alone in the corner, Ju Young sits, thinking about everything his father told him. He remembers he needs to become the king of this place to get his revenge. With a determined look, he knows what he needs to do to kill his father. But the problem was that he didn't even know where to start his plan. One of the inmates complains about being hungry, saying he only ate vegetables in that prison. Another complains he'd kill for a slice of pizza. He was so hungry. Hearing the conversation, he gets an idea, thinking of something he'd kill to have. As a guard passes by, everyone goes quiet, waiting for him to move away from the cell. With a plan in mind, he prepares to put his idea into practice. Calling the guard, he asks if there's any problem going on in their cell. Surprised, the inmates don't understand what Ju Young was doing with the guard. He then says it's nothing serious, he just wanted to ask a question. With a serious look, he asks if he can order a pizza delivery there. Irritated, the other inmates shout, unable to believe their cellmate's audacity. Angrily, the guard tells him to get out of the cell right now for a talk. One of the inmates curses, believing he had gone completely crazy. Eating the pizza, he says the taste is incredible and that it was worth it. In disbelief, they eat the pizza, one of them even crying because it was so good. One of them then praises Ju Young, saying he's the best for getting the food. He realizes he's getting special treatment because of who his father is. With the status of that monster's son, he could get anything he wanted in there. He then thinks he needs to see how far the freedom he's been given goes. An inmate calls him boss, asking if he's some kind of celebrity. They then ask if his father is a congressman, or if he's very rich. With a clenched fist, he thinks he'll do whatever it takes to get his revenge, and if that means taking advantage of his father, so be it. He then wonders what's gotten into Guillaume Ma, who had been acting strange all day. One of the inmates calls him to eat, but the other says to leave him alone. With a clenched fist, one of them comments that he's more somber than usual. Sitting in the corner, he wondered what had happened to make him like this. In the workshop, the prisoners were working, making noise with the tools and materials. Together, they organized the boxes and equipment in their workspace. On the table, they place a box full of nails and other tools. With a defiant look, the boy says his hand might slip again. Faking an accident, he prepares to throw the box on his colleague. He then throws everything, knocking the box of nails over Guillaume Ma. Surprised, he is hit by the nails, which scatter all over his body. With a smile, the boy says it was his bad, and that his hands are oily. Angrily, he asks what the hell Guillaume was doing in the workshop. He glares back at him, with a defiant and confident look. Another inmate asks if Guillaume was really the guy they were looking for. One of them questions why the man was staring at him in such a strange way. With a confused look, he says he thought he was a weak loser. The man then asks if Guillaume was lying about being the gang leader. With a smile, he says he wasn't lying about anything he said. He then reveals that Guillaume was always an easy target for him in the past. Sarcastically, he asks if he's forgotten the memories they made together. With a swift move, he dodges an attack coming his way. With a piece of wood, he prepares to strike and refresh his memory. The attack makes him remember when he was tormented by Jailman at school. He recalls the fear he felt, begging him to stop the assaults. In a flashback, he pleaded for Jailman to stop tormenting him, and leave him alone. With a smile, he asks what he said, pretending not to hear him. Locked in the room, he said he couldn't hear him from the outside. Pleading, he begged to be let out, desperate about his situation. Sarcastically, he said he didn't know if he should let him out of that place. He then said that the real fun hadn't even started for them yet. With a hammer, he asked if the boy was ready for what was coming. Trembling with fear, he listened to the countdown. Unable to do anything, with the hammer raised, he prepared for the attack, ending the countdown. The scene shows an empty chair, symbolizing what was about to happen there. Trembling, his legs couldn't stop, showing his complete terror. With a smile, he asked if that helped refresh his memory. Back in the present, all the inmates turned to Gyeom-ma, who was silent. One of them then mocks him, saying he was shaking and calling him weak. In disbelief, the man picks up the nails from the floor with his hand, calling him an idiot. He says it's impossible for him to have killed anyone, underestimating him completely. Holding the man's hand, he doesn't care about the nails that hurt him. With the noise, the nails fall to the floor, and the other inmates watch the scene. Letting go of his hand, Jeonmin stares at him, still shocked by his unexpected reaction. At that moment, Ju-young asks if by any chance he wants to see what happened. With a threatening look, Gyeom-ma asks if they want to see how he did it. Grabbing his face, Gyeom-ma doesn't understand what's happening. The guard then orders them back to their posts, ending the argument. Pulling his hand away, Gyeom-ma backs off, ending the fight that almost started. One of the inmates complains, saying the fight was just about to get good. With a smile, Jeonmin walks away, leaving Gyeom-ma with his companions. He then grumbles that the new guy is still as annoying as ever. One of the inmates asks if Jesus or Buddha is stronger, starting a debate. They then start arguing about which religion offers the best snacks. Amid the discussion, one of them jokingly declares war on the other's religion. Back in their cell, the two sit in silence, not exchanging a single word. In a moment of silence, he just watches his cellmate. With a word of thanks, Gyeom-ma faces him, surprising the boy with his words. He explains that if it weren't for him, he would have rotted in there for another decade. He then asks why he changed his mind, since he seemed angry before. With a determined look, he says he now has a reason to get out of here. With a look of hatred, he says he's going to confront his friend's killer. Surprised, Gyeom-ma says he thought he was in a coma, but the boy says it's a long story. He continues, saying that thanks to Gyeom-ma, he no longer has to stay locked up in there. With a serious gaze, he watches the boy, not saying a single word about it. Without thinking, he says that's bad news for someone staying for 20 years. With a grateful look, he promises to repay the favor one day. Ju-young just says whatever, not caring about the promise that was made. The cell then falls silent, with the two of them preparing for the night. With a key in his hand, he says that this was the key to his plan. The guard then apologizes, saying he has to leave for an emergency. Asking him to clean up the place, he says goodbye and leaves the workshop behind. Alone in the workshop, he looks at the tools scattered across the workbench. With a curious glance, he notices something that caught his attention. On the table, a moth lands, drawn to the light of the prison workshop. This reminds him of Jeonmin, the boy who used to torment him in school. He then recalls a flashback from when he was younger, in school. With a butterfly in his hand, Jeonmin showed off his collection to his friend. He was proud, saying he had pinned all the butterflies himself, but Gyeom-ma said he didn't like insects, like moths and butterflies. Jeonmin would then call him a coward, revealing that he was his first friend. In the classroom, the other students would comment that Jeonmin was weird and creepy. They thought it was disgusting how he always carried insects around. One of them provoked him, asking if he ate the insects he collected. Getting closer, he would ask if he wanted him to feed him one of the insects. With a serious look, Gyeom-ma would order them back to their seats. Whispering, one of them said the class president would definitely give them demerits. Apologizing, they promised they wouldn't do that to their classmate again. He would then ask if Jeonmin was okay, who thanked him for his help. With a smile, he'd ask if his friend was still coming over to his house that day. He was excited to play a new game, but Gyeom-ma called him out. A classmate called him to play soccer, but he said he had other plans. He remembers a rift started to form between him and his friend. Over time, their friendship drifted further and further apart. They grew even more distant when they were placed in different classrooms at school. A classmate then asked if he had heard about that loser, Jeonmin. On his desk, the bullies wrote insults, and he became the new target. A classmate then warned him that they had just dragged him to the storage room. Running, he goes after his friend, worried about what might happen to him. Straightening his tie, he prepares to confront the bullies who took him. Breathing heavily, he reaches the door, getting ready to enter the room. Trying to look through the window, he searches for his friend, but can't find him. Arriving, he asks where Jeonmin is, but the bullies just stare at him. Mockingly, they say they don't know where his loser friend is. One of them then tells him to look behind him with a malicious smile on his face. With a terrifying look, Jaeonmin appears behind him, ready to attack. With a shove, he throws him into the dark, scary room. Confused, he asks what Jaeonmin is doing to him in that place. With a hateful glare, he tells the boy to just get in and stay quiet. Slamming the door, he locks him in the room with no chance of escape. Locking the door, he takes a deep breath, preparing for what's next. With a smile, he says the insect fell right into the trap he set. He explains that he was told to bring his favorite insect if he wanted to join the gang. From outside, he hears the screams, and with a smile, tells him not to move. Trapped in the room, he realizes that now that he had his insect, something was going to happen. He remembers that he had to pin the insect while it was still alive and moving. Back in the present, he wondered why people liked butterflies. He then says the moth reminded him of how he used to be. With a squeeze, he crushes the moth in his hand, a look of rage on his face. With a clenched fist, he blames Jaeonman for everything that happened to him. Confused, Jaeonman asks what he's talking about, playing dumb. He says he knew he was planning to pull away just to stab him in the back. To him, he was a disgusting moth, while Gyeom-ma was the favorite butterfly. Ever since he came to that conclusion, he says every day has been torture. He blames him for everything, but says that life is full of surprises. Angrily, he says he didn't expect him to throw himself off a cliff. He says that when he heard the news that he had killed 7 people, with a smile, he felt like he was on cloud 9, as if he were flying with happiness. Mockingly, he asks if karma isn't a wonderful thing for them both. With a clenched fist, he says Jaeonmin is completely delusional in his thoughts. Scared, Jaeonmin is startled by his old school friend's reaction. The lights then go out, plunging the entire workshop into complete darkness. With a smile, he says he doesn't care if he's delusional about all of it. Being held, the other inmates restrain him, leaving him no chance to escape. He couldn't believe Jaeonmin had managed to bribe the prison guard. With a smile, he warns that the party is just getting started for them. He then says that now that he has his insect, something needs to be done. He remembers that he needs to pin the insect while it's still alive. With a look of terror, he realizes what's about to happen to him. Screaming, he begs them to wait, but he's dragged away by the other inmates. With a smile, Jaeonmin blames him for everything that has happened in his life. Trembling, he screams in terror as he's locked in a dark, tight locker. From the outside, he says everything is Gyeom's fault, blaming him for his suffering. Opening the locker, he says he forgot to mention one small detail. With a smile, he reveals he left a little present for him inside. He then feels something strange on his body, as if something is moving. With a command, he tells his friends to say hi to their new buddy. Inside the locker, several insects start to crawl out, completely surrounding Gyeom. With a smile, he asks if Gyeom liked the surprise he prepared. He wonders why he isn't screaming, since he couldn't even stand butterflies. Watching, he wonders if he's trying to hold back his screams and fear. One of the inmates says he doesn't seem to be in the mood to entertain them. Another asks if Jeongmin is sure. After all, he was a real killer. With a smile, he says he doesn't care what he did in the past. One of them then scoffs, saying that not even a murderer can scare him. Being held, he says the main event hasn't even started for them yet. He then whispers that he's going to make him squeal like a dying pig. A footstep is heard, and someone approaches the group that was tormenting him. Curious, one of the inmates asks how exactly he's going to do that to the boy. Suddenly, Ju-young appears, startling the group who didn't expect his arrival. One of the inmates then asks how he plans to make Gyeom scream in pain. He then attacks one of the men, making him scream from the blow he received. Angrily, another inmate charges forward, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing. Surprised, the man has no time to react to the attack coming his way. With a strike, he throws him to the ground, asking if that's how it should be done. Scared, Jaeonmin watches the scene, with Gyeom-ma holding him from behind. With a serious look, he calls out to Gyeom, preparing for what he's about to say. Peeking through a crack, he remembers the debt he owed him. In a fighting stance, he says to consider the debt between them finally paid. Inside the cell, one of the inmates seems to notice something strange. Asking for Gyeom, he hears that an officer called him to the wood shop. His cellmates comment it was for cleaning, but they find it strange given the time. Suddenly, the cellmate stands up unexpectedly. Reaching the bars, he calls out to a nearby guard. The guard recognizes him and asks what he wants this time. Meanwhile, another group of inmates is arguing over whether they're getting pizza or chicken. Just then, the guy asks the guard to open the cell door immediately. The other inmates are left completely speechless when they hear what he said. Surprised, the guard asks what he just said. Changing scenes, someone tells Gyeom the debt has been paid. In front of Gyeom, the man on the floor confirms the debt is paid. In the other room, he watches the 2 unconscious men on the floor. Back in the cell, an inmate approaches and recognizes him as Ju-young Cha. He then says he heard Ju-young has been stirring things up around here. Staring at the guy, Jeonmin Yun seems to be reflecting on the whole situation. He comments that he wasn't sure, but now it's become quite obvious. At that, the group's leader deduces that the 2 must be close friends. With heavy irony, The other inmate shouts that he's jealous of their friendship. Finding it funny, the big guy tells Junmin he's pretty amusing. Turning to Ju-young, he says the guy seems like a loyal friend. Then he asks if Ju-young wants to be his friend too, preparing for a strike. Moving his foot quickly, he gets into position to counter the imminent attack. Caught by surprise, the attacker suddenly finds himself upside down. With a single move, Ju-young executes a throw and flings him over. Thrown with force, the man crashes hard onto the floor. Looking down, Ju-young says he'd prefer something else before being friends. On the floor, the big guy hears him finish, saying he'd rather die. Turning next, he gets the attention of the scared, blonde inmate. Just then, Guillaume shows up and says he went a little overboard with the force. Ju-young turns his head and directly asks the reason for all this. Repeating his words, Guillaume questions if he really thought it was an exaggeration. He then yells, asking if Ju-young is kidding him. Outraged, he asks if Ju-young has any idea of the hell he went through. Guillaume explains that the man acted as if he were his only childhood friend, but in reality, he was planning to backstab him the whole time. With a serious look, Ju-young listens to the warning to be careful with Guillaume. Just then, the big guy appears from behind and warns him about his friend. Grabbing him by the neck, he says they won't get rid of him that easily. He reveals he was just waiting for the right moment to finally make his move. Seeing the scene, Guillaume shouts for the henchman to go ahead with the attack. Squeezing even tighter, he asks again if Ju-young doesn't want to be friends. Feeling the pressure, he positions his hand for a precise counterattack on the man. With a swift move, he strikes the attacker's finger. Suddenly, Guillaume appears out of nowhere and strikes the henchman. With a smile, Guillaume asks what he thought of that nice surprise. Praising Jeonmin, the henchman says he knew he could count on him. Almost out of air, Ju-young struggles to breathe, but it's difficult. As he squeezes, the man tells him to relax to avoid something worse. He then warns that his neck is going to break, but is suddenly startled. Scared, the blonde guy looks and questions if that's really Guillaume. Not understanding a thing, he wonders how the guy managed to escape. Recalling the scene, he realizes the padlock was broken with a single strike. At that moment, Ju-young lands a hard punch right in the blonde guy's face. After taking them both down, he breathes a sigh of relief for a brief moment. Looking to the side, he says the situation almost got out of control. The henchman struggles, trying to free himself from the chain around his neck. He then yells that Ju-young isn't strong enough to hold him there. Pulling the chain with all his might, he gets help from another inmate. On the floor, the blonde guy tells them to keep pulling harder. Smiling, he says he already warned them about what would happen. Ju-young is completely shocked as he hears him tell the other one to relax. Pulling the chain, he warns that the man's neck is going to break. Being choked, his henchman starts to lose all his breath. At that moment, a drop of blood runs down the metal chain. He then tells the henchman to relax, unless he wants to die right there. The man struggles violently, but he can no longer breathe. With one last pull, he finally drops the henchman onto the warehouse floor. Exhausted after the fight, he slowly tries to catch his breath. Standing in front of the man, he stares at the fallen henchman. Turning towards Jeonmin, he stares at him with a serious look. Seeing him approach, the guy desperately begs him to wait. He yells that he's the victim, saying he was forced to do everything. Desperate, he says he only tried to defend himself and that he did nothing. Facing the blonde guy, he stares him down with a dark expression. With one blow, the blonde guy falls hard to the ground, screaming loudly. On his knees, he desperately begs for Guillaume's forgiveness right then and there. Admitting he was stupid, he continues to crawl across the warehouse floor. Asking to forget everything, he hears Guillaume answer with a blunt no. Guillaume then says he never considered him a loser like he claimed to be. Completely shocked, the guy asks what he means by that. Guillaume then says that Jeonmin ruined his life by playing the victim. He confesses he thought about killing him since it wouldn't make much of a difference, but he adds that he doesn't think he hates him that much. Guillaume then remembers that the two of them used to be friends back in the day. Hearing that, the blonde guy cracks a very strange and creepy smile. Remembering the past, a scene of their friendship is shown. Laughing in his face, the blonde guy calls him a coward. Just as he's about to threaten him, he gets hit and says that really hurt. Then, Ju-young takes down the other inmates with a series of quick blows. On the floor, the blonde guy just watches the situation unfold. With his hand injured, Ju-young says that now they're finally even. At that, Guillaume looks at Ju-young, calling his companion's name. His hand slowly clenches into a fist, showing a bit of his tension. Back in the cell, Guillaume says he needs to ask him a question. He then asks if Ju-young is an idiot, saying he doesn't get the reason why. Explaining, he says Ju-young got scared of that skinny guy. Inside the cell, the two of them remain seated, talking about what happened. Moving closer, Ju-young confirms it with a smile, leaving Guillaume completely confused. He says he doesn't know the whole story, but that Guillaume doesn't consider him. Finishing the sentence, he says his old friend isn't a threat. After hearing everything, Guillaume just lets out a slight chuckle. In pain, Ju-young asks if he was still there after the fight. Guillaume then calls out to Ju-young, who responds, waiting for him to finish. With a sincere smile, he simply thanks him for all the help. Saying whatever, Ju-young just cracks a smirk. Suddenly, his expression changes as he notices something very strange happening. Hearing someone call for Jeonmin, he turns around, completely startled by the scene. Looking in the direction of the voice, he tries to figure out who the new person is. Just then, a man says he didn't give anyone permission to leave the room. Staring everyone down, the new inmate has a far from friendly expression. He then says there was a cockroach, landing a hard blow on the other guy. Continuing the assault, he yells that he was scared and nobody helped him. Shocked by the scene, Ju-young and Guillaume watch all the unexpected violence unfold. On the floor, Jeonmin remains unconscious, unable to even react. Complaining that he got dirty, the man looks at his own bloody hand. Pacing back and forth, he says he hates germs and feeling dirty. Then he lunges at Ju-young and suddenly grabs him. He then uses Ju-young's clothes to wipe all the blood off his hand. Asking what he thinks, Ju-young stares at him, completely unfazed. He gets closer and asks if he looks clean now. Insisting, he demands Ju-young answer if he looks cleaner now. In that instant, a tense silence falls over the entire warehouse. With a serious look, Ju-young answers no, saying he's still dirty. The man is completely shocked by the response. Guillaume just watches the scene, surprised by his companion's reaction. Gritting his teeth, the man's face twists with pure rage. Yelling that he's dirty, he lunges at Ju-young with a punch. Suddenly, a guard appears and orders everyone back to their rooms. Startled, the guard asks what they were all doing in there. Looking closely, he focuses on prisoner Ju-young's identification number. Repeating the number, he approaches, staring at Ju-young strangely. Getting very close, he says the number 7199 one more time. The scene changes. Two men are watching others play ball in the prison yard. Ju-young then asks why, looking around, completely confused. He adds that everyone is sitting next to him outside his room. With a smile, an inmate says the answer to that is pretty obvious. Introduced as Namin-gu, he begins to explain why. Whispering among themselves, the inmates comment that everyone knows Ju-young is strong. They then say that nobody messes with the group when they're near him. With little choice, Ju-young seems to accept the whole situation, saying whatever. He then asks not to be bothered, as he has a mission to complete. His mission is to find a tattoo of a dragon with red flowers around it. He needs to find the guys who have this specific tattoo somewhere. As he searches, he watches some inmates sitting on the yard's stairs. Looking to another corner, he wonders where they could be hiding. Just then, his companion asks what he's looking for, staring at the others. Offering help, the guy says he's known as the prison's informant. Commenting on his search, he reveals he's looking for a specific tattoo. He adds that it's something personal that really pisses him off. The scene changes. A news report talks about the rise in organized youth crime. Mentioned on TV, they're described as groups that rob and extort people. Hearing the news, an inmate grumbles that they're a bunch of idiots. Another then says those criminals deserve to rot in jail until they die. Sensing the mood, the inmate next to him just says the comment was harsh. Trying to break the ice, he says the place doesn't only have bad people. With a smile, he says he'll tell them why he's in prison. He begins by saying there was once an incredible restaurant in his neighborhood. As a loyal customer, he loved the place's sauce and pasta. One day, a politician's son showed up, doing whatever he wanted. With several goons, the man sits down and just stares at the owner. Laughing, he says the owner must be kidding him. Complaining about the dumplings, he says they were supposed to be made of rice. Outraged, he starts breaking everything, yelling about the wheat dumplings. He then smashes a picture frame that was on the restaurant's counter. In the middle of the chaos, the guy shows up and hits the aggressor with a single blow. Facing the aggressor, he says he heard about the problem with the dumplings. He says that in the end, he won the fight, becoming a legendary hero. Regretfully, he explains he ended up here because the aggressor told his father everything. At that moment, a companion interrupts him and asks if he's lying again. Laughing in his face, the other inmates reveal his nickname is Namin-gun. He still insists his stories are true, but nobody seems to believe him. Guillaume then comments that he'd be an idiot to believe that story again. Suddenly, Ju-young surprises everyone and says he believes his story. Completely shocked, Namin stares at him, not knowing how to react. In his thoughts, he compares his life to the relationship between ants and aphids. That was the exact nature of his relationship with all the bullies he had ever known. He then reflects that he has spent his entire life sucking up to the strongest. Thinking about Ju-young's words, he believes the new leader likes him. Smiling, he concludes that the new prison boss likes him a lot. Now his plan is to become his right-hand man and lay low until the end. Thinking about the chance for a peaceful life, he continues working in the garden. Digging the dirt with a smile, he seems quite excited about the new task. Suddenly, something splashes on his face, leaving him completely confused. Looking up, he sees a man with an expression of disgust disgust and pain. Holding his own face, the man asks what all this filth is. He then screams desperately that it stinks, leaving Namin in shock. Cutting to a flashback, the man says he got dirty because of the lies. In the memory, he is seen forcing something into the mouth of a person on the ground. He then finishes by saying he's going to clean that liar's dirty mouth. Back in the past, Namin thinks he never wanted to meet his old leader again. Rubbing his face, the man was screaming about germs and his face rotting. Seeing what's coming, he apologizes for not being careful. With a terrifying look, the man asks if he looks clean now. Afraid, he says yes, that the man is clean and shining. Then the man shows a bottle of pesticide and asks if that's really true. Saying he'll let it slide, he sprays the pesticide right in his face. Screaming in pain, Namin puts his hands on his face, feeling it burn. Fallen on the ground, he thrashes and screams in agony because of his eyes. Standing in front of him, the man says he actually came to ask for a favor. Still on the ground, Namin hears him say a prisoner's number. In a memory, the man repeats the same identification number over and over. He then asks if the prisoner with that number is in the same room. Namin remembers that this is Juyong's own identification number. Furious, the man says the other inmate called him dirty. He asks if Namin knows how hard he tries to stay clean. With a terrifying look, he stares at Namin, who seems to already know what's coming. Opening his shirt, he asks for help disinfecting his body with the pesticide. At that moment, Namin sees the dragon tattoo with flowers he was looking for. Back in the cell, someone is on the floor counting push-ups out loud. Reaching the 100th push-up, Juyong finally finishes his nightly exercise routine. Finishing his workout, he thinks that he still hasn't found the tattoo. The image of that dragon with red flowers remains his only goal here. Impressed with the workout, Namin watches Juyong finish his entire set. He then compliments Juyong's form, saying you can tell he used to work out. Offering some grape juice, he explains it will help his body recover. Although suspicious, Juyong takes the cup and thanks him for the drink. He then stares at the purple liquid inside the cup, analyzing the strange drink. With a very serious look, he turns and calls Namin directly. Remembering the pesticide, he asks who gave him that product. Holding the cup, he asks who gave him the poison to mix into the juice. In a flashback, Namin is seen being held down on the floor by several inmates. His former leader says he's all dirty now because of everything. Screaming in anger, he blames him for the lies that made him filthy. He then warns that he'll have to clean his mouth out for this. Announcing it's time to sanitize, he prepares for drastic action. Namin thinks that the first room he was sent to was a complete hell. At that, the man despairs and screams, asking what he did. The victim chokes on the floor as the torture scene continues in the flashback. Frantically cleaning the floor, he says the place was ruled by a demon. Back in the present, Juyong calls out to Namin with a very serious and direct look. He then asks who gave him the pesticide on the shelf to mix into his drink. Desperate, Namin tries to deny it, saying he bought the juice with his own money. His cellmates doubt him and tell him to drink it first to prove it's safe. Juyong asks if there's a special reason for giving him that juice out of nowhere. Afraid, he wonders if Juyong suspects him of something too. Reflecting on his lies, he understands it's fair for Juyong not to trust him. Suddenly, to his surprise, Juyong simply tilts the cup and drinks it all. He gulps down the juice in one go, leaving Namin speechless. Saying it was good, Juyong thanks him and hands back the empty cup. He then tells everyone to go to sleep, as they have group cleaning tomorrow. Namin is paralyzed, wondering if that really just happened. In his thoughts, he regrets not putting the poison in directly without testing it first. Remembering before, he recalls Juyong defending him, saying he believed in him. With a determined expression, he seems to have made a new, important decision. Changing scenes, a man is drawing in a notebook while others sleep peacefully. In the notebook, he's making a detailed sketch of the dragon with flowers tattoo. Just then, Namin approaches and asks what that cute drawing is. Juyong explains that it's the flowery dragon, a blue dragon with red flowers. He reveals his plan is to find a way to get all the bad guys. Thinking of a way, Juyong asks if he has anything to say. A bit hesitant, Namin says he wanted to ask something. He then asks why Juyong trusts him so much. Warning him of the danger, he says Juyong could get hurt for trusting him. Juyong replies that being a liar also means he's smart. He then says that someone as smart as him wouldn't talk too much. Finishing his sentence, he warns Namin not to get on his bad side. When the lights go out, Juyong tells him to go to bed. Namin just stares at him with an expression of great surprise and confusion. Looking at the floor, he sees the dragon drawing Juyong made. With a smile, he thinks that Juyong must find him pretty smart. The next day, a guard announces a department inspection. After the announcement, all the inmates start cleaning the prison hallway. Just then, The former leader shows up and says Namin promised him something. He then reminds him of the promise that Namin would help him with the sanitizing. Staring at Namin, he asks if the kid is going to go back on his promise. Desperate, Namin says that Ju-young regretted saying those things. He continues, saying the guy asked him to apologize for everything. With a furious expression, the man yells that it's another lie. With one blow, he throws him to the ground, screaming about lies. Thrown against the wall, Namin feels the heavy impact of that single blow. Threateningly, the man says that prisoner 7199 is a dead man for this. Yelling that he's coming for him, he starts landing several blows on Namin. Stepping on his face, the man says that now everything's fine between them. Then, he opens a bottle of bleach, completely terrifying Namin. He then says he's going to sanitize both of them with his own hands. Pouring the liquid, he starts filling one of the showers with it. As he's being drowned, Namin tries to call for help, but he can't breathe anymore. Struggling in the water, he realizes the man is really going to do it. Suddenly, a voice asks what he's doing in there. Asking if the scene isn't disgusting, he glares at the newcomer. Ju-young then agrees and says the man is the one who's being dirty. Being saved, Namin cries out Ju-young's name, lying on the floor. Looking at his friend, he asks why it took him so long to get there. In a flashback, Ju-young is seen calmly sweeping the prison hallway. Namin then approaches and says he needs to confess something very serious. He tells him that someone forced him to try and give Ju-young pesticide to drink. Holding the bottle, he says that as a man of honor, he would never do that. Pouring it all on the floor, he yells that no one would make him betray a friend. He then says he's going to tell that guy to get lost, without fear of the consequences. With a smile, he says he almost forgot to mention one more thing. He reveals that the dragon tattoo he was looking for has been found. With a smile, he says Ju-young was right, and that he's pretty smart. Meanwhile, the man complains that some dirty water splashed on him. He then thinks that's what happens to anyone who dares to get him dirty like that. At that, Ju-young uses his own clothes to wipe the man's face. Screaming about germs, he panics and calls out the prisoner's number. As he's threatening him, he's interrupted by a quick, unexpected blow. With one move, Ju-young throws him far away, asking if he ever shuts up. He then slams hard against the floor, feeling the impact of the blow. On the ground, he hears Ju-young say that he's finally found what he was looking for. Standing in front of him, Ju-young confirms that he was the one who tried to use him. Looking at the man on the floor, Namin seems relieved by the situation. Ju-young then says he won't hold back when he lands several blows on him. With a serious look, he prepares for the beating that's about to begin. Switching to a flashback, a fighter was drawing attention for his incredible finishing moves. Using all his strength, he prepared for his signature move on his opponent. Wrapping his legs around his rival's torso, he squeezed with all his might. But what looked like skill was actually just a dirty trick. To prevent him from tapping out, he pinned his opponent's hands to the ground. With a victorious smile, he watched his rival, immobilized and trapped. But ever since that day, something unexpected started happening during his fights. Suddenly, with a look of panic, he felt something very strange. Vomiting on his opponent, he never used that finishing move again. Ironically, his fate changed completely after that incident in the ring. That same fighter who loved to play dirty now seemed like a different person. Constantly rubbing his hands, he developed a critical condition for a fighter. He ended up developing severe germophobia, repeating that everything was dirty. Returning to the shower scene, Ju-young calls him a clean freak. Grabbing his face, Ju-young demands an immediate answer to his question. Demanding answers, he tells the man to spill everything about the Dragon Gang. Lying on the floor, he mutters that the bathroom is filthy and full of germs. Yelling that his skin is rotting, he lunges at Ju-young. He then starts listing various names of bacteria, completely out of his mind. Asking if he's serious, Ju-young dodges his attacks. He finishes the question while swiftly dodging another blow. Watching from a distance, Namin thinks he was smart to side with him. Noticing his stubbornness, Ju-young says he won't be talking anytime soon. Saying he's also disgusted, he prepares for a more drastic measure. He then says that maybe a shock will motivate him to finally open his mouth. Grabbing his face, Ju-young tells him to open his mouth wide, right now. Changing scenes, a man complains that he's feeling really sweaty in there. Deciding to wash up, he heads towards the shower to get clean. Opening the door, he screams in fright at the scene inside. Yelling that he's trash, Ju-young asks if that's what they call them now. With one move, the hooded man throws him hard onto the locker room floor. He then says he heard he doesn't fight anymore because of his germophobia. Seeing that he doesn't break free, he says the rumors seem to be true. Remembering the shame, he asks if the other man knows how he felt. Blaming the man, he says it was all because of his dirty tricks. Telling him to open his mouth, he warns that he's going to shove it straight into his stomach. Desperate, the man screams for him to stop, begging him not to do it. Gritting his teeth, he says he doesn't want to get dirty with his germs. Suddenly, the tables turn and he finds himself on the floor, confused. Ju-young then says he also hates being contaminated by other people. Grabbing his hand, he warns him what will happen if he gets him dirty. With a swift move, he throws the man to the ground and pins him. Threateningly, the man says he'll crush all his intestines for this. Using his legs, he starts to apply a powerful hold on his torso. Feeling the pressure, Ju Ju-young's bones seem to crack from the squeeze. Whispering, he says he'll show him what it's like to have your organs explode. Feeling the pressure, Ju-young screams in pain as he's held even tighter. From the doorway, Namin watches everything and desperately yells Ju-young's name. He wonders if he should help, as Ju-young might not last much longer. Confused, he watches the scene unfold right in front of him, not understanding. Remembering the past, the man says this makes him feel nostalgic. In a flashback, Ju-young remembers his father never gave him a hug. He recalls his father taught him to fight with bone-crushing hugs. Those were the worst days of his life, filled with grueling training. Remembering the training, he breaks free from the hold with a quick move. He then says that thanks to his father, he basically grew up rolling on the floor. With a smile, he says he got used to grappling on the ground. With a twist, he manages to land a counter move right on his opponent's body. Feeling the pressure, the man can no longer maintain his previous grip. Smiling, he asks what will happen first, his organs or his spine. With a final move, he powerfully lifts his opponent into the air. Applying more pressure, he finishes the move with a loud crack. Feeling the pain, the man screams desperately while held in the air. Confused, Ju-young sees the man tapping the floor, indicating he wants to give up. He then asks if the man is trying to tap out of the fight right now. With a smile, he says that wasn't part of his father's lesson. The man just stares at him, with an expression of pure terror and despair. With one last crack, he finally drops him on the bathroom floor. Meanwhile, the other inmates continue cleaning the prison hallway. Inside the bathroom, the tied-up man struggles but can't break free. Namin tells him to stop moving while holding him with a gag. Impatient, Ju-young says he's still trying to fight somehow. He then says that maybe the shock wasn't enough for him. Remarking that he doesn't want to do this either, he unzips his pants. He then warns that this is the most shocking thing he can do. Standing in front of the man, he says this is as far as he'll go for now. Tied up, the man struggles as Namin and Ju-young hold him to the ground. Namin then asks if he's ready to drink some delicious lemon juice. With a serious look, Ju-young tells him to describe the taste afterward. Desperate, the man screams that he'll tell them anything they want to hear. Ju-young says he knew he'd break his stubbornness one way or another. He then demands to know everything about the Sky Dragon gang right now. In a flashback, a woman says she heard about the rookie's germophobia. She then says he'll be happy with what she has prepared. Starting the tattoo, she says he's going to like his new dragon. With a smile, she asks if he knows why the gang accepts minors. Explaining the tattoo, she says the dragon represents power and the flowers, vitality. She then comments that even the most beautiful flower will eventually wither. The woman reveals that the dragon seeks new seeds for the next generation. She says that young people may be smaller, but they have enormous potential. With the right nurturing, they can evolve depending on where and how they live. She explains that the gang recruits talented individuals to nurture in their garden. Thus, the seeds they plant will grow and develop over time. Blooming like beautiful flowers, they become part of the dragon's garden. Hearing all this, the man seems to finally understand the gang's overall plan. He yells that's all he knows, and that he's just a henchman. Begging to be released, he stares at Ju-young, who seems lost in thought. Remembering his father, Ju-young understands the reason for so much suffering in his childhood. He recalls the harsh training and the abuse he suffered since he was a child. Looking into the past, he sees his younger self, tired and bruised. He realizes his father wanted him to bloom as quickly as possible. At that moment, Namin calls out to him, breaking the silence and his train of thought. The man then says that now he's the one with a question. He asks why Ju-young is so eager to know about the dragon gang. With a suspicious look, he asks if the kid wants to join by any chance. Muttering, he says it's not too late if he works for him. With a smirk, he offers a recommendation to a high-ranking member. In a swift move, Ju-young grabs him tightly by the neck. Held in a chokehold, he desperately asks what he did wrong. He then yells that he already told him everything he knew about the gang. Telling him to shut up, Ju-young holds him firmly by the neck. He then says this is just because of how he's feeling. With a final blow, he knocks him out on the bathroom floor. Meanwhile, the guard orders all inmates to finish cleaning the hallway. Cleaning the floor, Gyam complains that he can't get a stain off the tile. He then thinks that maybe a little bleach would help clean it. Suddenly, Namin shows up and hands him a bottle of bleach. Surrounded by the others, Namin makes a scene and calls him boss in front of everyone. With the bottle in hand, he says he wants to thank him for something. He talks about the relief he felt when Ju-young defeated the germaphobe. Holding the bottle, Ju-young suddenly seems to remember something important. Recalling, he asks if the man hadn't tortured him with bleach before. He finishes the question, remembering the story he told about his old room. Asking how he survived, Guillaume stares at him, not quite understanding the story. Namin then confirms that the situation was pretty wild. cold and that he foamed at the mouth. He reveals that he swapped the bleach for soapy water beforehand. He explains that he had to lie to a lot of people to get his room changed. Ju-young just listens in silence, still not believing the story he told. Saying there's no need for thanks, he says he only did it to find the tattoo. Naman then asks why he's looking for that dragon gang. With a serious look, Ju-young replies that it's so he can land a few hits on them. He says he's already taken down 2, but doesn't know how long it'll take to find the rest. Ju-young then wonders if the 2 inmates had anything in common. Thinking it over, he seems to start connecting the dots and understanding everything. He realizes that the 2 men he defeated were the room leaders. Determined, he says he'll go after each leader one by one. Naman then reveals that next week, all the leaders are going to meet. He explains that they're all gathering for the so-called Meeting of the Kings. Asking if he hasn't heard of it, Naman seems surprised by his reaction. He says the meeting is for them to improve their relationships with each other, but in reality, the meeting is for them to discuss all their crimes. Angrily, he says that it's basically a criminal cartel. Ju-young then says that's convenient for finding them all in one place. Warning him of the danger, Naman tells him not to forget where he is. He reminds him that the worst juvenile criminals of all are gathered here. At this meeting, he'll be in the middle of the most dangerous inmates in the prison. Telling him to be careful, Naman advises him to keep his head down. Elsewhere, an inmate comments that he heard about Jong Chan and the germaphobe. He says some kid named Juyong Cha was the one who took them both down. Asking if anyone's interested, another inmate says he couldn't care less. He adds that he hates attention seekers and that they need to be taught a lesson. Reading a book, another inmate tells him to contain his anger. Suddenly the door opens and they notice an unexpected presence. With a shovel in hand, Juyong says he wouldn't have gone to so much trouble to find them. Snapping the shovel in half, he says he didn't know they'd all be gathered together. Leaping forward, he propels himself with great speed and force. Running toward them, he charges at the group of inmates. Suddenly, all the room leaders appear gathered in the same place. Among them are some of the most feared faces in the entire prison. One of them then asks if the Sky Dragon really wants to nurture new seeds. With the shovel in hand, Ju-young says he'll make sure of one thing. He then adds that he's going to crush them all until nothing is left. Working in the yard, a guard shouts that the pipes need to be fixed. Calling out to Guillaume, an inmate says their boss is going somewhere. He explains that Ju-young is going to the Gathering of Kings and asks for a word of support. Confused, Guillaume asks what exactly this Gathering of Kings is. One of the inmates then offers to explain the situation better. He says it's an event approved by the director for the leaders to socialize. The inmate warns that they're more like huge, dangerous criminal organizations. Awkwardly, Guillaume wishes him good luck, but Naman asks for more enthusiasm. Holding the shovel, he reminds him that those people are wild and dangerous. With a serious look, he advises him not to do anything stupid there. Facing the other leaders, one of them asks about the new dragon seeds. He then says he's going to make sure to do something very important. With a determined look, he says he'll crush them all without mercy. In the middle of the group, he's threatening one of the leaders present. The other inmates just watch the scene, unsure of what to do. With the shovel in hand, he dares them all to come at him. In silence, the leader just watches Ju-young approach with the shovel. With a smile, he says he refuses the challenge, leaving Ju-young surprised. Completely shocked, he asks what the man just said. He then explains that leaders can use violence to maintain order, but he warns that Ju-young forgot a crucial detail about the rules here. He says that the leaders he defeated had good reasons to fight, known as justification. That was what allowed the fights between them. Asking if he understands, the man stares at Ju-young with a serious look. He then says there's no justification for a fight with no gain. Warning him of the consequences, he says this will disturb the order. If that happens, the other leaders will surely end his life right there. With a smile, he asks if Ju-young still plans to attack him with that thing. Surrounded by the others, he faces the group of inmates in front of him. Ju-young then realizes he'll be attacked if he doesn't have a good reason. With a smile, he says this is exactly what he had imagined. He reflects that if he becomes an enemy to everyone, he'll never get out of here. Even though it was reckless, he wanted to confirm his suspicions about that leader. Stepping to the side, the man approaches him with a smile. He asks if Ju-young is done with his little act, since he knew he wouldn't be attacked. From his actions, he deduces that Ju-young holds a great grudge against the gang. With a smile, he says he thinks Ju-young is a fool for his actions. He adds that Ju-young needs to learn his place here. Meanwhile, in an empty room, the leaders prepare for the meeting. One of them then announces that the scheduled meeting will finally begin. All the room leaders gather for the Gathering of Kings. Starting the meeting, he says that some members couldn't attend today. He then names Seong-ho, Jongchan, and Gaeon, all leaders of their rooms. The others comment that the three didn't come because of their injuries. injuries. With his hands clasped, one of the leaders laments the absence of the three. He then thinks of the name Juyong Cha, the one responsible for all this. He then announces that the cause of their absence is present here. As the new leader of room 36, Juyong enters the room and faces them. The other leaders comment that they've heard a lot about him, but didn't know him. With a serious expression, Juyong just listens to the other inmates' whispers. Observing the room, he notices there are 15 leaders there, but no tattoos. He then realizes there's a single exception among everyone present. Calling out to Juyong, one of the leaders asks if he has anything to say. With a thoughtful expression, Juyong seems to reflect on what he's going to say. He then says it's not like he's become the president of the place. With a smile, he just says it's a pleasure to meet everyone. Angry at his attitude, one of the leaders crushes his own cup in his hand. Continuing the meeting, the man with glasses talks about the sources of profit. He explains that the shops, managed by them, are the main source. A portion of all the profit generated by each shop must be paid to the director. However, he reveals that one of the shops didn't make its quarterly payment. He then reveals it was the betting circle, managed by Do Hwan. Do Hwan says there must have been a mistake and that he'll sort it out. He guarantees the money will be delivered by the end of the day. Privately, one of the leaders comments that he's heard some interesting rumors about Do Hwan. He says the betting games don't seem to be based on trust. Apparently, some people think they're being tricked and robbed by him. The other leaders watch the argument between the two unfold at the meeting. With a smile, Do Hwan says he knows what would happen if he did that. He then dares anyone to prove his betting circle is fraudulent. Juyong just watches the whole scene with a serious, calculating expression. Do Hwan completes the challenge, saying they can even take his life if they prove it. The meeting continues, with the next topic being the distribution of cigarettes in Building 2. Elsewhere, a man begs for the torture to stop. Tied up, he screams that it's enough, begging them to stop everything. He pleads, saying he can't take it anymore. Being tortured, he lets out a scream of pain that echoes throughout the warehouse. Playing cards, an inmate celebrates winning the round with a bad hand. In a workshop, several inmates are gathered in a betting circle. Introduced as Yoonho Ji, one of the dealers asks if it's his first time. He explains that the games here are simpler than the ones outside. As a beginner, he recommends the dice game since it's the simplest. With a smile, he tells Juyong to trust him, that it'll be a lot of fun. Juyong just stares at him, with a serious and thoughtful expression about the invitation. He then decides to play a round, sitting down across from the dealer. With a smile, he thinks there's no reason to drag this out any longer. He reflects that without justification, he can't attack the group's leader. Looking at the dealer, he realizes he can use the situation to his advantage. Remembering the rule, he can turn the leader's own declaration against him. Do Hwan's promise that they could kill him if they proved the fraud comes to mind. Juyong stares at Do Hwan, who is at a table a little further away. He then thinks he can strike a blow right to the man's heart. With one strike, he smashes the dice on the floor, revealing the sham. Startled, the other inmates ask what just happened. Juyong then asks if they have a magnet inside the betting dice. Broken in half, the die reveals the mechanism they used to cheat. With a smile, he says they seem to be a bunch of scammers. Aimed at reforming young people, the prison was supposed to be a serious place. But on the surface, at least, reality was far different from what it seemed. The detention center had become a den of illegal activities and corruption. Now, various sources of profit are managed by the room leaders known as the shops. A cut of all the profits they generate is given to the warden. In exchange, the leaders receive perks an ordinary inmate couldn't even dream of. A full-fledged criminal cartel was thriving inside that juvenile detention center. Who could have imagined something like this was happening right inside? The gambling ring was one of the most profitable shops in the entire center. One of the inmates grumbles that he gets the game now, but he's spent everything. Desperate, he says he knows he can win, and that he just needs one more round. On his knees, he's told there's a way to keep playing if he wants to. He then explains he can lend him the money for one more round. With a smile, he says he just needs some collateral. He adds that there are always new inmates to join the game. Angrily, the inmate says he should have told him about the collateral beforehand. Suddenly, Yoonho asks what just happened in the dice game. Juyong then asks if they're using a magnet hidden inside the die. Showing the broken die, the gambling ring's scam is exposed. With a smirk, he says they're nothing but a bunch of scammers. Whispering, the other inmates start to wonder what's going on. With a nervous smile, Yoonho tries to deny Juyong's accusations. Telling him not to lie, Juyong shows the magnet that was inside the die. The other inmates begin to wonder if the gambling ring really is a sham. Holding the magnet, he asks if he's wrong about the game being rigged. He then explains that the magnet is used to control the die's outcome. With a smile, Yoonho says he's actually mistaken about that. He tries to explain that it's just a weight to balance the die. Showing a magnet, he proposes a quick experiment to prove he's right. He then asks Juyong to bring the metal piece closer to the magnet he's holding. He then explains that if it were a magnet, it wouldn't have fallen to the floor. Celebrating, Yoonho shows that other metals stick to the magnet he's holding. building. The other inmates comment that the guy didn't even know what he was talking about. They then get ready to start the dice game again with Ju Young. Watching from a distance, Do-won seems very attentive to the whole situation. With a serious look, he analyzes Ju Young's every move in the dice game. Impressed, Yoonho comments that his roll was very fast and accurate. He then asks if Ju Young has already lost all the money he had. Confused, he wonders why he lost, since he had a chance to win. Looking at the dice, he thinks maybe it was just bad luck. Yoonho asks if he has any more money to keep betting in the game. Searching his pocket, he finds a piece of paper and throws it on the ground, frustrated. Suddenly, one of the inmates yells that the gambling game is a sham. He then yells that they've all been tricked by them this whole time. With a wooden stick, he charges forward, yelling that he's no fool. Do-won then approaches the man who's causing all the commotion. Yelling that he didn't lose, he lunges forward with a strike, but is stopped. Do-won grabs his hand and says it's strange for him to react like this. With one blow, he throws him to the ground, saying he got angry too easily. He then asks if the man has any way to back up his claims. The man shouts that the odds are wrong and that he can feel it. With a smirk, Do-won tells him to avoid making a scene without proof. He adds that the man is making the other customers uncomfortable. Apologizing, he says he was just trying to ensure everyone's safety. He then tells everyone to enjoy the games, showing who's in charge. Watching Ju Young, he thinks that he didn't expect to see another idiot trying his luck. With a serious expression, he says it's simple. You just have to be better at the game. Back in the cell, Guillaume asks how it went at the gambling ring. Ju Young replies that he lost all his money and didn't find any proof. He then asks Guillaume how his day was and what happened. With a smile, Guillaume reveals that they got what they wanted from there. He shows the cards, saying he stole them just as they had planned. Namin praises Ju Young's performance, which distracted everyone with the commotion. He explains that with everyone's attention on Ju Young, it was easy to grab the cards. While everyone was watching, he took advantage of the distraction for the planned theft. Asking what they think, Namin brags to everyone about his brilliant plan. Ju Young then says that if the games are rigged, there must be something in the cards. With a serious expression, he confirms that he's sure something is wrong. He believes there has to be something hidden in those playing cards. In a flashback, the inmate begs for his life, screaming that he doesn't want to. Tied up, he apologizes and swears he'll never do it again. As he's being tortured, he begs them to stop, but the man doesn't listen. Do-won then asks if he thinks his gambling ring is fraudulent. He says he hates liars who spread false rumors about others. Desperate, the man begs him to wait and not do anything rash. He then says he doesn't know what to do with guys like him. Taking a step forward, Do-won approaches Yoonho, who is watching him. Apologizing, Yoonho tries to explain himself, but Do-won asks about what. Trembling, he says it was Ju Young's fault for causing the commotion. Do-won tells him not to worry, as none of it was his fault. With a serious gaze, he stares at Yoonho, who becomes increasingly frightened. He then says his only job is to be a faithful employee. Commenting on Ju Young, he says the kid seems to hate the gang. He says he doesn't care if Ju Young comes after him, but not in his business. With an angry expression, he threatens him in case Ju Young causes trouble again. Back in the cell, Namin excitedly shouts that he's finally found the proof he needed. Confused, the others ask what he just saw. Showing the card, he points to the repeating circles on the back. He explains that 2 of the circles are slightly larger than the others. This way, Yoonho knows exactly which card it is, even when it's face down. With a determined look, he observes the details of the card they stole. He then says he now has the justification he so badly needed to act. Remembering the threat, Do-won had said that if he caused trouble again, he would act. He added that he would have to take him down once and for all. With the card in his hand, he now has the proof he needed to make a move. On a dark night, inmate Jong-soo Kim is called for his release. With his backpack on, he is finally discharged from the detention center. Suddenly, he spins around, startled, when someone calls his name. A strange man congratulates him, saying he's a free man now. Offering him some tofu, he asks if the young man had fun inside. He then adds on, talking about the fun he had in the gambling ring. Shoving the tofu into his mouth, the man says he knows exactly what he did. He reminds him there's a way to keep playing, even without money. You just have to put something up as collateral for another round of betting. Showing him a contract, he says it lists everything he put up as collateral. With a smile, he reveals that the young man gave up all his organs. Reading the details, he says the most important thing is his blood type. Excited, he says the young man's type O blood is exactly what they were looking for. Begging them to wait, he tries to break free, but it's too late for him. With his mouth covered, he's thrown forcefully into a van. In the visitation room, Do-won talks to a man about his illegal business. He says the parts are always fresh because they come from young people. Showing off a new tooth, he thanks Do-won for his help with everything. Do-won is introduced as a middleman in the prison's organ trafficking ring. With a serious look, the man asks how long he plans to keep this up. He warns him that eventually, Do-won will end up taking all the blame. With a smirk, he asks what would happen if everyone found out the truth. Do-won then says that in this world, you can do anything with money. Back in his cell, Ju-young thinks that their scheme was to mark the cards. He realizes the difference is so subtle, it's almost impossible to see. Boasting, Namin says that maybe he should become a real detective. With the proof in hand, he says he now has the perfect weapon. He then reveals that tonight, they will return to the gambling ring. With a determined look, he prepares for the next phase of the plan. In a dark place, a light illuminates the path to an abandoned workshop. Thinking about the plan, he says his job is quite simple. Arriving at the game table, he's greeted by one of the dealers. After proving the fraud, he can finally go after Do-won. Suddenly, he stops when he sees Do-won standing in front of him. Saying he was waiting, he stares him down with a challenging gaze. He then invites Ju-young to play a game with him at the table. With a smile, he says he's curious to know Ju-young's motive. He adds, asking why he's so eager to take down the Dragon Gang. Angrily, Ju-young says that what he does is none of his business. He then proposes that if he wins the game, Ju-young will have to tell him. With a smirk, he thinks this might be a blessing in disguise and accepts. Accepting the challenge, he says he won't have to hunt him down anymore. The other inmates are surprised, whispering that this is the first time this has happened. Do-won then says he'll let Ju-young choose the game they'll play. Thinking for a moment, he says that since he's played with dice, he wants to use cards. He then proposes a matching game, which is very simple to play. The rule is to flip a card and then find another one with the same number. If he gets a match, he can keep playing until he flips a wrong card. If he misses, the turn passes to his opponent to try and match the cards. The goal of the game is to remember where each card is after it's been flipped. With a smile, he says there's no way he can lose, now that he knows the secret. He thinks that if he didn't know the trick, his defeat would be guaranteed. Meanwhile, the other inmates gather to see what's happening. The others comment that they've never heard of Ju-young, the new challenger. On the security cameras, Guillaume and the others watch the whole scene unfold. Suddenly, Ju-young notices something very strange about the deck on the table. Looking closely, he sees that none of the cards are marked like before. Namin grumbles, wondering if it's because the circles are too small to see. Guillaume then realizes that's not it. They've removed all the marked cards. Ju-young faces Do-won, who now seems to have complete control of the situation. With a smirk, Do-won watches him with an expression of superiority and contempt. He then asks if Ju-young likes the patterns on the cards. In a mocking tone, he says he only uses decks of the highest quality. He also comments that he has other games perfect for beginners like Ju-young. Startled, Ju-young thinks that he knows about the theft of the marked cards. He realizes that Do-won knows they stole the cards earlier. Suggesting a game, he says that maybe they should start with Catch the Thief. Yunho then asks if both players are ready to begin. Announcing the start, he says the betting will begin now. Do-won places a stack of cash on the table as the opening bet. He says that should be a good amount to start the match. He comments that it would be boring to bet so little, being the manager of the place. Ju-young then asks what happens if he doesn't have any money. Yunho then explains he can play if he offers something as collateral. He then shows him a contract and tells him to sign on the dotted line. The paper is an organ harvesting agreement, leaving Ju-young shocked by the proposal. He explains that he just needs to mark the parts he wants to bet in the game. With a smile, he says he's waiting for Ju-young to make his final decision. The other inmates are shocked, whispering that he's just putting on a show. Do-won and Ju-young stare each other down, the tension at the table thick. With a smile, he apologizes, saying he didn't mean to scare him. Guillaume thinks that Ju-young can't win as the game must be rigged. Namin thinks that if he refuses to play, he can avoid the danger. Suddenly, the other inmates are shocked by Ju-young's action. With a pen, he begins to sign the contract in front of everyone. He then asks if he can keep playing without money, using collateral. The other inmates wonder what he's doing, not understanding at all. Signing the paper, he warns Do-won that he'd better keep his word. With a defiant look, he says that Do-won can take everything if he loses. With the contract signed, he announces that he's betting everything on this round. All the inmates watch the game table, waiting to see what will happen. With a smile, Do-won accepts the bet and says the game will now begin. Namin and Guillaume are shocked, wondering if he really bet his organs. They can't understand what Ju-young is planning with such a risky bet. Recapping the rules, Yunho says the objective is to find 2 matching cards. With a smile, he says Ju-young can start the game, since it's his turn. Saying it seems simple, Ju-young reaches out to flip the first card. He flips the first card, an 8 of spades, and memorizes it. The second card he flips is a 9 of hearts, failing to get a match. Yunho then says that unfortunately, it wasn't a match and passes the turn. With a smile, Do-won flips the first card, a 9 of clubs. He then says he remembers exactly where the other card is. With a quick move, he flips the other card and gets a pair. The other inmates comment that he got lucky right at the start of the game. With a serious expression, he thinks that luck is all you need. He says it's his turn, but Ju-young says that's not quite right. He reveals that he has already memorized the position of all the cards on the table. With all the cards turned over, he shows that he knows where each one is. Do-won thinks this is the perfect method, as there's no way to prove it. He reveals that he conspired conspired with Yoonho to know the position of each card. As he takes everything from Ju-young, he watches him with no expression on his face. With a look of contempt, he thinks the situation is pathetic. In a flashback, Do-won's father asks why he loves him so much. With a smile, Do-won replies that the answer to that is pretty obvious. He then says he loves him because his father makes a lot of money. Laughing, the father says that he'll have to work much harder for his son then. He says he'll work hard to make a lot of money for his son. Looking at his father, he used to think he was the strongest man in the world. At least, that's what he thought about his father back then, until he discovered that his father was spending all their money on gambling. He then found out his father owed 500 million in private loans. Asking if his son loved him, he had no idea about the truth behind it all. He didn't know he was playing on machines that were all rigged. Do-won thinks that luck is smiling, but he's no fool. He chose to be on the other side of the game, the side that always wins. The other inmates comment that Ju-young hasn't gotten a single match yet. Whispering, they say the game is basically over for the kid. Ju-young then thinks this is a good time for his next move. He then says it's time to show everyone the truth. With one move, he flips a card and reveals the game is rigged. He then flips another card, making a pair of queens on the table. Surprised, the other inmates comment that he got 2 queens at once. They wonder if his luck is finally about to turn in this game. With another move, he flips 2 more cards and gets another pair. With a smirk, Do-won says things are getting more interesting. The other inmates shout, impressed by the sudden turn in the game. Without a single mistake, Ju-young keeps flipping cards and making pairs on the table. Reaching 14 pairs, he doesn't stop hitting the matches. They then realize he's about to take all the cards. Shocked, Do-won thinks that this can't possibly be happening. He remembers that only he and Yoonho knew the positions of the cards. Only the two of them knew the exact order of every card in that deck. With a smile, Yoonho just stares at him, a very strange look on his face. Announcing the end of the day, he tells everyone to leave and ends the game. While cleaning up, he finds a crumpled piece of paper on the warehouse floor. Holding the paper, he realizes there's more to it than meets the eye. He then remembers that Ju-young threw it on the floor during the match earlier. Uncrumpling the paper, he sees that there's something written inside. It's a note. Ju-young called him for a meeting behind the bathroom. Arriving at the location, he asks why Ju-young wanted to talk to him. With a serious expression, Ju-young says he knows what's going on. He then reveals that the game's cards are all rigged and marked. Trying to play it off, Yoonho says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Ju-young then says they've already swapped the rigged cards for a normal deck. Ju-young explains that's why he gave him the note earlier. Getting straight to the point, he faces Yoonho with a new proposal. With a determined look, he offers to save him from this situation. He says he heard that Yoonho is working to pay off a debt to Do-won. Shocked, Yoonho hears him reveal that he knows about the organ collateral. Ju-young then promises he'll take care of the debt if he helps him. Scared, Yoonho says that if anything goes wrong, Do-won will kill him. He then asks if Yoonho is sure he'll be able to pay it all back. He reminds him that he only has 1 more week before he's released. Ju-young asks if he wants his organs harvested as soon as he gets out. He then says what he needs to do is easier than rolling dice. With a smile, he says that today seems to be his lucky day. Staring at the cards on the table, Do-won can't believe what he's seeing. With a serious expression, he says he might just have a very good memory. He reveals that he memorized the deck after Yoonho handed it to him. The other inmates whisper, wondering if Yoonho helped him cheat. Yoonho then confirms that Ju-young is right about what he said. He reveals that all the games in the betting circle were rigged. With this revelation, all the other inmates start whispering among themselves. He even says he can detail the exact method used in every game. Outraged, the other inmates demand their money back and move in on him. Angry, Do-won asks if they think his circle is fraudulent. With a smile, he says of course not, denying all the accusations. He then says he won't tolerate these lies and lunges forward to attack. With one blow, he strikes the table and shatters it with all his might. As the cards fly, Ju-young says that's justification enough for him. Remembering the promise, he said they could even put a knife to his neck. Facing Do-won, he says it's not a knife, but he has something different. Holding the table, he says this is enough to cut his head off. Papers are slipped under the door. Pounding on the door, a voice from outside shouts for them to open it. He screams from outside that he took the money to gamble. Demanding a response, the man keeps shouting for him to say something. In a memory, Do-won's father cowered, saying he just wanted to make money. Then he remembers his mother, saying she only loved him for his money. Because of the stress from gambling debts, his father ended up bedridden. It was at that moment he started to understand how the world works. Sitting on the floor, he realized he couldn't protect his family like that. Looking at his sick father, he understood that without money, there was no protection. Back in the present, Ju-young says that what he's holding isn't a knife. Lifting a heavy object, Ju-young threatens that it will be enough to end everything. With a quick move, Ju-young lunges forward to deliver a powerful blow. Striking the ground, the blow kicks up dust and surprises the others around. After everything, Ju-young just stares at the situation with a thoughtful look. Looking at the damage on the floor, Ju-young says the target must have escaped. Revealing his presence, Do-won lands a direct hit, saying, "Of course not." Thrown back, Ju-young crashes through the wall from the force of the blow. Do-won confronts Yoonho, accusing him of betrayal. Grabbing Yoonho by the neck, he screams that he'll pay for this. Trying to explain, Yoonho talks about evidence but is cut off with a question. Meanwhile, another man is shown secretly taking the evidence. Startled, Yoonho recognizes the man who took the evidence as the other negotiator. Realizing it's a setup, he sees the negotiator running away with all the evidence. Unable to react, Yoonho understands he's been completely tricked by them. Slamming his fist on the table, Do-hwan shouts that he's the one who should be angry. He then accuses him of tarnishing the shop's reputation by siding with a stranger. Just then, Ju-young appears, as Do-hwan wonders if he offered to pay off the debt. Grabbing Yoonho, he says that nothing motivates people more than one thing. He throws Yoonho towards Ju-young and says, "Money." From the impact, Yoonho is thrown hard against Ju-young. "Don't get me wrong," he says, "I don't hold any grudges." But then he unleashes a series of blows, saying he won't forgive him either. Watching the scene, the other prisoner is shocked by the violence of the blows. After stopping, he just lets out a sigh before continuing the action. Looking at Yoonho on the ground, he comments that it looks like he ran away. Suddenly, a swift blow hits him, showing he wasn't alone. Taking the hit, Do-won is thrown far, crashing against the cars. Surrounded by money, Ju-young warns that he's not running away at all, and makes it clear he won't let the other one escape either. Fallen on the ground, a defeated Do-won can only look up. The scene changes, showing his father in the hospital, still in a coma. Remembering the past, he thinks about how gambling destroyed his family. Taking care of his father, he laments that his life was ruined by a scam. Holding his father's hand, he finally learned about his life. Remembering the past, he recalls the marks on his father's body. Then he understood how all the gambling debts were paid without money. A man then reveals that he was the one who sold his own father's organs. With a smile, the man says, "You can't trust anyone." Questioning why he's taking care of him, the man reminds him the debt was paid. He then asks if he suddenly decided to become a good son. With a mocking tone, he asks if being a good son offers any payoff. Just then, a life insurance policy is shown on the bed. The memory ends with the idea that you can sell your own family. Back in the prison, Do-won tells him not to worry about anything, but he warns that he wouldn't even dream of escaping from that place. Clenching his fist, he adds that all his money was still there. Ju-young then asks why he's so obsessed with money. Without answering, Ju-young unleashes a series of blows. Landing squarely, the punches cause massive damage to Do-won's face. With a final blow, the impact seems to break his opponent's bone. Pressing against him, Do-won asks what's going to happen next. Grabbing Do-won, Ju-young finishes his thought, "So what if you don't know how to fight?" Seeing the scene, one of the onlookers shouts the name of the man who is falling. Taking advantage of the movement, Do-won manages to land a direct hit on his opponent. Feeling the impact, Ju-young is thrown backward by the blow he took. Preparing himself, the other fighter rushes forward to deliver a decisive blow. With a swift move, he hits his opponent with a powerful strike. As blood drips, he says that idiots end up on his payroll. With a victorious look, Ju-young asks who really cares in the end. Defeated, Ju-young lies on top of a car, completely motionless. Seeing the scene, the others wonder why he said that when he's so strong. At this, Yoonho worries, imagining what will happen if he loses. Turning to the crowd, Do-won apologizes for the commotion that just happened. Wiping his face, Do-won assures them that the gambling house is still running perfectly. Saying he should have thought it through, he comments that the cleanup will take a while. Agreeing with him, Ju-young says that no one in that gambling house was tricked, so there's no justification to rip his head off. Correcting himself, he says that he never actually needed a justification. Questioning the place, he asks if this isn't a place for gambling. Proposing a game, he invites them to a round of hide-and-seek. Then he warns them that, ready or not, he's coming for all of them. With the warning given, the defeated Ju-young remains motionless on the car. Facing everyone, Ju-young prepares to start the chase he announced. At that moment, pieces of glass fall to the floor, breaking the silence. Getting up, he warns that if he catches him, he's a dead man. As the count is called, the prisoners look up apprehensively. Ju-young then announces he's coming, slowly approaching the group. Wiping the blood from his face, he readies himself for the final confrontation. His face bloodied, he asks if his opponent is finally ready. Inside the warehouse, tension mounts as the fight is about to restart. Getting up from the floor, Do-won asks if he really thought he would run. Grabbing some dice, he says he'd never run from a place like that. With a strike, he yells that he would never abandon the place he built himself. Blocking the blow, Ju-young says that Do-won seems a bit delusional. Warning that his tower will turn to ash, he throws him to the ground. Saying he's tired of hide-and-seek, Ju-young holds the almost defeated Do-won. Suggesting a new game, Ju-young proposes they roll the dice to decide. Showing the result, the die on the floor reveals the number rolled was 3. Declaring it's 3 hits, he lands a quick sequence on Do-hwan. Lying on the ground, Do-hwan asks if Ju-young thinks he can beat him. Saying he's different, he claims he knows how to use his brain brain to his advantage. Ju-young throws a die to the floor. Do-won boasts that he's full of ambition. Spinning across the warehouse, the die keeps rolling without stopping for a moment. Reflected in his eye, the die reveals that Do-won has a grand plan. In a pitying tone, Ju-young comments on his ambitions and his plan, but he points out that the die has stopped, showing he has no luck at all. Realizing his defeat, Do-won angrily yells for him to cut the crap. Announcing 6 hits, Ju-young unleashes a brutal sequence of attacks on the boss. Completely defeated, Do-won lies on the ground, unable to react. The scene changes. A tattoo artist hopes his mother won't see the tattoo. Asking what young people like, she mentions designs like koi fish and goblins. She then asks which design he's looking for to get tattooed. After a moment, he prepares to give his final answer. Looking at her, Do-won says he wants the dragon tattooed on his chest. Noticing him looking at the tattoo, she says she already knows everything. Revealing her identity, Do-won states that she's the recruiter for the Dragon Gang. With a briefcase of money, Do-won says his greatest desire is to join. Explaining his plan, Do-won says that with support, he can set everything in motion. Do-won then finishes, guaranteeing he can make an astronomical amount of money. Finding the proposal tempting, she says she prefers men who risk their lives. Taking the object from her hand, he replies that he's fine with that. Looking into her eyes, Do-won says he risks many things for money. Pointing the object at his neck, he says his life is one of them. Grabbing his hand, she finally says he's been accepted into the gang. She then asks what he would like to receive from the Celestial Dragon now. With a determined look, he says that first of all, he needs to be sent somewhere. Completing his request, he reveals that he wants to go to the Juvenile Detention Center. Back in the prison, one of the inmates yells for everyone to get out of the way. Getting up, Do-won yells again for everyone to get out of his way. Yelling for everyone to get lost, he thinks that he needs to retreat for now. Believing the evidence was destroyed, he remembers the other dealer. Just then, Guillaume stops in front of him, telling him to take it. Revealing the bag, he says he can have his evidence back. With a solid blow, he sends Do-won flying with great force. Seeing the dice and cards, the prisoners comment that it's just gambling supplies. But he tells everyone to look closer, to pay more attention to the items. Guillaume then reveals he got the bag from the dealer who tried to run away earlier. Showing the contents, he claims that it proves everyone was cheated. Saying it's over for him, one of the prisoners remarks that he was useful. Realizing the scam, the crowd starts demanding all their money back. Grabbing the money, Do-won screams that no one will take what's his. On the ground, he keeps screaming that nobody will take his money away. Trying to reach the bills, Do-won insists that he was the one who earned that money. Coming closer, Ju-young pours a liquid on him, saying it's not over yet. Tossing a heavy object on the ground, he prepares for the final play. Soaked, Ju-young says there's still one last game for them to play. With an object in his hands, he readies himself for the final challenge. Holding 2 objects, he suggests a game of surviving electric shocks. Announcing that Do-won goes first, he watches the man complain about the money. Yelling for him to stop, Do-won threatens to end his life. Ju-young simply replies that he had already warned him what would happen. With the device activated, Ju-young repeats that he will turn it all to ash. After a crackle, the spectators look on in horror at the scene. Looking down, he seems a little surprised by what just happened. On the ground, the boss seems to have passed out from the shock he took. Seeing the man on the floor, he asks if he already passed out from just that. Whispering, the crowd comments that the gambling house boss has been destroyed. At that moment, a man shouts for everyone to grab the scattered money. Smiling, a man reveals he already knew the whole thing was a scam. Apologizing, he says the boss won't be managing this place anymore. 1 year and 2 months later, inmate Do-hwan is called for his release. As he's being discharged, he reflects that his plans in detention ended up being a failure, but he learned from the situation and managed to plan something much better. While thinking about how to start over, a familiar voice calls his name. Waving from a distance, a man celebrates, saying he finally got out. Offering a gift, he says he brought tofu and that it's the best. Apologizing, he says he couldn't provide the goods and asks for some time. Agreeing to the request, the man says sure, but first there's something to discuss. He then reminds him of the borrowed money, but Do-won says he has nothing. Saying it's okay, he smiles and says they are both specialists. Showing him a van, he claims there's always another way for everything. Inside the vehicle, a man is revealed lying on a stretcher with equipment. Calculating the debt, he says he's going to add the highest interest rate. Revealing the total, he says the debt comes to over $1 billion. Shoving him inside, the man warns that they're on a tight schedule. The van speeds off as the clients couldn't be kept waiting. Recounting what happened, he says that's how they got Do-won. Discussing the plan, one says he found the guards, and the other found the evidence. Peeking through the door, he confirms that another one of the targets has been defeated. He then remembers that he had already defeated 3 members of the Dragon Gang. Thinking about the next step, he prepares for what's to come. Back in the cell, Ju-young looks confused by something he sees ahead. Just then, a man appears at the door, and the others ask what he's doing there. Recognizing the newcomer, he seems to remember something important about him. Showing a photo, the man asks if that's the girl who was run over. With a quick blow, Ju-young lunges at the man, saying it's a shame. The blow lands squarely, sending the stranger flying to the other side of the cell. Asking for a pillow, Ju-young leaves his cellmate completely confused. Holding the man down, he says he doesn't want anyone in the hallway hearing the screams. Starting the count, he screams the number 1 out loud. Lying on the floor, he keeps counting to 3 while looking at the graffiti. Looking at the writing on the wall, he remarks that they're talking about his mom. With everyone watching him, he just says this is all boring. Needing something interesting, he says he's looking for a way to get excited. With his head on the floor, he hears a strange noise nearby. Seeing the door open, Ju-young says he wouldn't have looked so hard. Then he adds that he didn't know they would all be gathered here. Getting up, Ju-young asks if the Celestial Dragon wants to recruit new members. Then he says he's going to guarantee something very important for everyone. With a makeshift weapon, Ju-young threatens that he's going to finish them all. Smiling, he reveals that he's finally found his dopamine booster. Finally, a photo of the girl who was run over is revealed on the floor. In a flashback, Ju-young asks his cellmate for a pillow. Holding the man, Ju-young says he doesn't want anyone in the hallway to hear him scream. Covering his mouth, he sarcastically asks if he stuttered. Repeating the order, he says he doesn't want anyone hearing his screams. With a quick move, he turns the sketchbook towards him. Revealing what's inside, he shows the drawing, saying it's a surprise. He then asks if that's the dragon tattoo he was looking for. Throwing the man to the ground, he starts to say that maybe he can help. After being thrown away, he gets up, saying he can be useful. Staring intently, he says he can help cut off the dragon's heads, but before that, he says he needs to clear something up real quick. Handing back the photo, he says it fell and he meant no offense. Moving the photo closer, he insists he's just trying to help with the situation. Staring at the man, Ju-young remains silent for a moment without moving. With a strike to his hand, he tells the man to get lost immediately. Smiling, he just makes a sound as if he's thinking about what to do. He then says the other guy isn't as smart as he thought. Warning that he can fight, he points out the danger of not having a plan. In a serious tone, he says this place is much more dangerous. Staring at the man, he asks if he's still going to reject his help. Suspicious, he wonders why the man is offering help out of nowhere. As the other guy bends the bars, he wonders what he gets out of it. Calling out to the man, he asks what he really wants with all this. Turning around, the man says he knows the other is planning something. With a smile, he reveals that what he wants is a dopamine rush. The next day, the inmates gather in the detention center's auditorium. Celebrating, the prisoners can hardly believe what's happening inside. One of them comments that the place usually stinks of sweat, but it has changed. With the arrival of a choir, the atmosphere seems to have completely transformed. Impressed, the inmates even feel holier with the choir's performance. Commenting on the volunteers, one of the inmates says he loves big cathedrals. Correcting his cellmate, he says it's actually the Virgin Mary. Watching the stage, he focuses his gaze on the name of the volunteers' cathedral. In a memory from the past, a church's stained glass window is shown with a warning. Inside the church, a girl walks alone as the same phrase is repeated. The details of the stained glass window are shown, revealing the image of a saint praying. Arriving by surprise, a girl opens the door and startles the young man there. Identified as his friend, she says with a smile that she's finally found him. She then finds him sleeping, saying she knew he'd be hiding there. Waking up, he complains about the cold, but she says she warned him about it. With a smile, he says that even though it's cold, it's better here than at home. Hearing his answer, she falls silent with a slightly sad expression. Just then, the door opens, and he asks if she brought someone else. Startled by the noise, she begins to wonder what's happening. At the door, another girl asks for her, saying they're looking for her. Worried, she says that if she gets caught, she'll get in trouble too. Asking for silence, she warns that if they're discovered, they'll have to clean the cathedral. Back in the present, he continues to watch the choir's performance in the auditorium. Whispering, one of the inmates points and asks if that's a miracle. Another comments that she seems to have a halo and her voice is beautiful. When asked which one, he points out it's the girl in the center. Everyone then recognizes her, saying that's the famous saint of the choir. Watching everything, he seems to recognize the girl who is performing. He remembers the girl who called out to him in the church a long time ago. Confirming her identity, he wonders if that really is Yunha Seong. On stage, the girl looks confused by something she sees in the audience. Surprised, she recognizes him and calls his name softly. In the cafeteria, the inmates continue to talk about the girls from the choir. One of them comments that she thought they could help all the inmates. But looking at their behavior, she concludes they're a lost cause. Holding a sausage on his fork, an inmate says it looks quite appetizing. Personally, he says he's got his eye on a very different dish. Handing a box to her, another inmate says he's also interested. After eating, he's left licking an empty cup with a fixed stare. Now with the boxes, they wonder what can be found inside them. Complaining, one of them asks why they have to do anything for those demons. Continuing to grumble, she says they should just eat the leftovers. With his hands together, one of the prisoners gives thanks for his daily bread. Thanking the sisters, he wishes for the Lord's blessing to be with them. Surprised by his attitude, the two whisper, guessing he might be Catholic. Making the sign of the cross, he begins to pray in the name of the Father, but he finishes the prayer, revealing it was actually a Buddhist chant. Thanking them for the offering, he walks away from them and leaves the cafeteria. As they walk, one of the girls asks where her friend Yunhyo went. She answers that her friend just needed a short break. Complaining about the heat, she comments that the place is a bit too stuffy. To this, he replies that it's probably because the space is too cramped. She then apologizes, saying it was the most discreet place she could find. With an awkward smile, she remarks that it's been a long time since they've talked. Remembering the past, he recalls when the three of them always used to hang out together. He then says her name, standing silently beside her for a moment. When she starts to talk about Yunha, he cuts her off mid-sentence, saying he understands. He recalls how the two of them used to be inseparable. After that, his gaze changes, focusing on her more intensely before he speaks. Apologizing, she then says that he must have felt lonely. Flashing back to the past, some students are whispering about a girl in the school hallway. Walking down the hall, the girl, named Yunha, catches everyone's eye. Sitting at his desk, he wonders who she came to see on their floor. Stopping in front of him, she calls his name and asks why Juyong didn't answer. He apologizes, but she presses on, asking if he even read the messages. Explaining the situation, she says she won a bunch of gift coupons and can't use them all. When she asks for his help, he tells her he already has plans to go out with Daeon. Hurrying away, Juyong says goodbye and tells her maybe he can help next time. After he leaves, the expression on her face suddenly changes completely. Back in the present, she apologizes, saying she knows it was very hard, since he must have felt so alone. Pulling back a little, he asks what's wrong, a faint smile on his face. Saying she understands him, she talks about what it's like to feel alone in the world. Holding his hands, she tells him he's not truly alone anymore. Looking into his eyes, she assures him that from now on, she's there for him. Calling her name, he stares at her with a serious, distant look. She then asks why he never answered any of the letters she sent. Startled, he asks if something happened, but she just laughs. With a smile, she says he really hasn't changed at all since then. Twirling a strand of her hair, she continues to stare into his eyes. As she starts to speak, she seems to want to tell him something important right then. Just then, a guard appears, asking if one of the inmates has had lunch yet. The guard then announces they're handing out the meal trays and that he's hungry. Remembering the time, she says she forgot and lost track of time. Getting up, she says her goodbyes, telling him it was great to see him again. With a determined look, he tells her he'll see her on the outside in 3 years. Before leaving, she turns back and calls his name one more time. She then tells him she'll be back next week to visit him again. Explaining the situation, she says her cathedral has agreed to do volunteer work. With a smile, she says this means they'll be seeing each other more often. In the cafeteria, one of the volunteers asks an inmate how his meal was. Offering to help, she says she can clean up everything so he can rest. The inmates stop her, saying she's a saint and that they'll clean up. The other volunteers also approach, asking to receive her blessing. Watching the scene, a colleague comments that she really likes to be the center of attention. She adds that she didn't think the other girl would flirt with criminals like that. Whispering, one of them says that a certain rumor about her might actually be true. Overhearing the conversation, he hears them say she frequents some suspicious places. One of the guards, watching the scene, says she seems to have a lot of faith. He then adds, faith in her skills, if you know what I mean. Elsewhere, the Mother Superior prays, saying the world saddens her. One of the inmates, bored, asks when he'll finally be free from this life. Quoting the Bible, the Mother Superior says the truth will set them all free. She continues, saying that through faith, everyone can achieve freedom from sin. Looking at the inmates, she announces that today they will all be set free. On stage, the Mother Superior invites everyone to dance to the sacred rhythm of the music. To the sound of the beat, one of the volunteers starts to move on stage. Following the rhythm, she keeps dancing, drawing everyone into the performance. With great energy, the volunteers dance while the inmates shout and cheer. Everyone then chants her name, saying the saint is dancing for them. Watching the scene, one of the inmates comments that the girls are very beautiful. Two of them then whisper, planning to sneak into the volunteers' dressing room. Looking at his friend, he tells him to just trust him and follow the plan. After the performance, the Mother Superior thanks and congratulates them all on a job well done. One of them comments that the screaming made her deaf and the Mother Superior calls for them. In the hallway, a girl screams that the other one is wearing pink and tells her to let go. Hearing the noise, the inmates comment on the color of the girl's clothes. Excited by the discovery, they say they want to see what else the girls are wearing. Holding a doorknob, one of them wonders if this is paradise. Appearing at the door, he apologizes, saying they got off at the wrong stop. He then informs them that the two inmates are in hell right now. With one blow, he knocks both men to the ground and closes the door. Quoting the 10 Commandments, he mentions the 7th, which condemns adultery. Lying on the floor, he warns that anyone who commits adultery will never be forgiven. The religious leader then says the Lord will not forgive a blasphemous act. He then gets up, his hands in prayer, and a smile on his face. Watching the scene, one of the inmates wonders what they're talking about. Just then, Yoonha appears and asks what's going on in there. Startled by the situation, Yoonha freezes, just staring at everyone. Then one of the men screams, scaring the girl and making her back away. Grabbing Ju-young's arm, she shrinks back, afraid of what might happen. Turning to her, Ju-young asks if she's okay after the scare. Stammering, she apologizes and awkwardly pulls away from him. A week later, the scene shifts to the front of the detention center. In the auditorium, the Mother Superior begins a sermon on the forgiveness of sins. Meanwhile, in the donation room, one of the inmates starts to complain. Ju-young says he's being forced to carry all these donations to the storage room. Surrounded by other inmates, Ju-young asks if they can't just leave him alone. One of them says it took him a while to notice, but now it's too late. With a knife in his hand, he yells that it's too late for him now. Charging at Ju-young, the group attacks, stabbing him repeatedly. Holding a box of bottles, he says God would punish him for this. Clutching the box, Ju-young says they've ruined a perfectly good donation. With a pop, the bottles explode, distracting the attackers. Soaked, one of the men yells, but manages to say he's realized something important. He then adds that he's sure someone else is behind this. With a final blow, he throws him to the ground with all his might. Staring at the fallen man, he asks who sent him. Hearing a strange noise, he whips around, trying to see what happened. A guard enters the room, asking what was going on in there. Confused by the situation, the guard just stands there, not understanding what's happening. Seeing the guard enter, the girl is surprised by his unexpected appearance. Noticing her presence, the guard asks what she was doing in there. Noticing the belt on the floor, he asks if they tried to harm her. Pointing directly at the young man, she starts to stammer, trying to say something. Sitting on the floor, she accuses him, saying he's the one to blame for everything. In a text exchange, a man arranges to meet a girl. With a smile on his face, he looks at his phone after setting up the date. In the room, the girl asks if he promised to keep his end of the deal. Yoonha then confirms the amount, saying it's 500,000 in cash. He replies, of course, assuring her he's a rich man and can afford it. Complimenting the girl, he says she's even more beautiful in person. Inviting her to sit, he says he can explain everything in more detail. The bedroom door opens, revealing a new person entering the room. Startled, the man asks who it is, and the newcomer introduces himself as a pastor. Pointing at the man, he accuses him of having an affair with a minor. The man gets angry, asking if he's trying to blackmail him. As he makes a threat, Joseph lunges forward with a punch straight to his face. With a series of blows, he warns him to be careful about what he does. With a bag in her hands, Yuna warns that the whole world will know the truth. She finishes by saying the world will know what a cult pastor does. Elsewhere, a man begs for his life, but he is held down firmly. A man tells him not to worry, that they won't ask for much. Finishing the sentence, he says that everything they do is in the name of the Lord. A guard calls out the name and number of an inmate in the hallway. Opening the cell, the guard informs him that he's going to solitary confinement. Talking to him, the guard asks why he did that to the visitors. He says he knows about the special treatment the warden gives him, but he explains that since visitors were involved, he had no choice but to punish him. Pointing to the camera, he warns that the Department of Justice is monitoring everything. The guard then comments that he doesn't understand why someone would do something so horrible. Leaving the hallway, he adds that you don't expect this in a detention center. In a memory, the girl accuses him, saying he's the one to blame. Locked in solitary, he wonders what Yoonha was thinking when she did that. The scene then shifts back to the afternoon of the cathedral's volunteer event. In the parking lot, the cathedral bus waits to take the volunteers home. Inside the bus, Joseph says the Lord willed for them to meet again. Surprised, Yuna sees the inmate who claimed to be religious sitting next to her. Asking if he's even allowed to be there, she remarks that the place is lawless. He explains that the big shots pay off the warden to have more freedom inside. He then adds that he would do anything to be sitting with her. Recalling the past, he says this reminds him of the old days. He continues, saying they used to punish the heretics together back in the day. Identified as Joseph, he comments that their approach was a bit violent. With his hands in prayer, he says she has always been his trusted ally. Because of that, Joseph reveals he asked her for a very special favor. He then adds that he asked her to punish the inmate Ju-young for him. Sitting in solitary, Ju-young reflects on what just happened to him. Staring at the floor, he says he still can't understand what happened. Remembering the attack, he concludes that it's obvious he was set up. Thinking about the attack, Ju-young says the inmates were just stalling for time with him. Their real goal wasn't just a simple fight between inmates. They wanted to frame him for a crime, using his friend as bait. But in her statement, Yuna changed her mind and decided not to accuse him. Pointing at him, Yuna said that he was actually the one who helped her. She explained that the others dragged her away, and that he saved her. The guard then orders the other inmates to be taken out of there as quickly as possible. Imprisoned, he wonders how and who put her in that dangerous situation. He also wants to know why she changed her mind and saved him. Now in solitary, Ju-young calls the guard and asks him for a small favor. He warns him not to be obvious, as the camera was still there. Ju-young says he just needs to talk to a specific person. Remembering the previous week, a man talks about the first visit to the center. Joseph says he saw her hiding, trying to avoid him at all costs. It was in that moment he realized she had fallen for the heretic. With a smile, he says that's why he gave her a chance. Joseph says he gave her the chance to punish the heretic of her own free will. Grabbing her, Joseph asks why she didn't punish him when she had the chance. Clenching her hands, Yuna says she doesn't want to punish anyone like that anymore. He then reminds her that she used to do everything he asked. In a threatening tone, he asks if she's forgotten about the videos he has. He then tells her not to stray from the path and to keep helping. Threatening her mother, Joseph cuts her off as she shouts that she won't do it anymore. Standing up, she warns that she's going to report him to the police for everything he's done. She then adds that she'll tell them about all the crimes he's committed. With the commotion, his rosary falls to the floor, startling the girl. He then says it seems she's become more corrupt than he imagined. Grabbing her tightly, he declares that she is now a heretic just like the others. But he tells her not to worry, with a terrifying look on his face. With a smile, he says he's going to cleanse her of all her sins. Screaming in terror, she tries to pull away, but he tells her to go ahead and scream. He warns that with the choir and the bus outside, no one will hear her. With a smile, he says it's just the two of them alone on the bus. Just then, the bus door opens, revealing someone's arrival. Surprised by the appearance, he turns to see who just got on. Walking up the steps, a mysterious silhouette slowly approaches the two of them. Frightened, she shrinks back, not understanding what's happening. Standing in the aisle, Ju-young, who was in solitary, stares down Joseph. Puzzled, Joseph asks how he managed to get out of solitary so quickly. He then adds, questioning how he managed to escape and get here. Asking for a moment, Ju-young turns to the girl with a strange look. He then says he needs to take care of something before handling the situation. Pressing a button, he tells the guy to go ahead with his plan. With a loud noise, the bus door slams shut, trapping everyone inside. Staring at Joseph, Ju-young reveals he plans to do the exact same thing. Calling the guard, Ju-young asks for a quick favor, emphasizing its importance. He explains that he can't be obvious about it since the cameras are rolling. With a serious look, he states he only needs to speak with one person. Reaching the corridor, he finds the other inmate, who celebrates his arrival. Grabbing the bars, the prisoner admits he's jealous of Ju-young's private cell. Irritated, Ju-young snaps that he's in no mood for jokes and gets straight to the point. Recalling the proposal, he mentions that the man once offered an alliance to help him. He remembers the moment Joseph tried to approach him before. In a stern tone, he tells Joseph the time has come to prove his worth. Lowering his head, the prisoner asks Ju-young to tell him everything he knows about them. Joseph then asks what exactly Ju-young wants him to do to help. With a smirk, Joseph asks what kind of assistance he's looking for. Meanwhile, the girl lying on the bus floor calls out his name. Witnessing the scene, he screams his friend's name and rushes toward her. With a look of pure fury, he commands Joseph to get away from her immediately, warning him to back off. Joseph claims it's not what it looks like. With a smile, he insists that this is merely a religious act. He repeats his command with rage, ordering Joseph to step away from her at once. Standing up, Joseph insists it's a religious ritual and prepares himself. With firm steps, he slowly advances toward the Ju-young, who dared to challenge him. He says it's a difficult concept for a heretic like him to grasp. With a leap, Ju-young lunges forward to land a blow against his opponent. The hit connects squarely, sending Joseph flying back with immense force. Feeling the impact, Joseph screams at him to stop this nonsense. Looking at the girl, Ju-young declares that what Joseph did to her is a crime. Delivering a series of strikes, he shouts that it's a crime and the punishment must be death. But Joseph stands back up, appearing as if he hadn't felt the blows at all. Praising the hits, he remarks that Ju-young certainly knows how to throw a punch. He then asks who taught him to fight in such a unique style. With a quick strike, Ju-young replies that it's none of his business. He then states that he didn't learn to fight from any ordinary human. The only thing Joseph has, according to him, is a body blessed by God. Worried, the girl screams his name, terrified of what might happen next. With a powerful strike, Joseph boasts about his blessed body. Terrified, the girl covers her mouth, unable to believe what she's seeing. Slumped in the hallway, Joseph claims he is the Lord's messenger on this earth. Completing his thought, he says his mission is to punish all heretics. Turning to the girl, he asks if she doesn't agree with him. With a smile, he calls her sister and waits for her response. Shifting to a memory, A banner for a summer camp is shown. Chatting in a group, a girl explains that she doesn't live with her mother. With her hands in prayer, she says she wishes she could live with her one day. She finishes her prayer, closing her eyes and whispering, "Amen." Commenting on the debt, a woman praises the girl's mother for paying everything off alone. Thanking them for the support, the girl says goodbye to the people who promised to pray for her. As she walks away, she is watched by a man who was at the same camp. With his eyes closed, Joseph finishes his own prayer, whispering, "Amen." In an empty corridor, the scene sets the stage for an unexpected encounter between the two. Walking down the hall, she is called by Joseph, who had been watching her from a distance. Introducing himself, he says he was at the same Bible camp. With his hands in prayer, he says he heard her story and was deeply moved. Recalling their conversation, he mentions her father's debt and her mother's hard work. Offering help, he suggests he might be able to take care of that problem for her. He then reveals a way to clear the entire debt quickly. Showing her some photos, he explains that her mission would be to punish heretics. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he begins to tell her that he thinks she is perfect for the job. On the floor, a Bible with a strange symbol is shown. Grabbing Joseph's wrist, Ju-young accuses him of being an evil heretic. Lifting Ju-young by the ankle, Joseph accuses him of seducing Sister Yuna. Holding him upside down, Joseph warns that he will now punish him for good. With a sudden strike, Joseph's face is hit with great force. Turning slowly, Joseph demands the person stop that immediately. Holding an object, the girl screams for him to stop the assault right now. Grabbing the object from her, he tells her that's the best she can do. Throwing Ju-young against the window, he says it's all his fault. Seeing this, the girl screams his name, completely terrified by the situation. Striking her, he tells her she has fallen so low because of him. With a terrifying smile, he tells her not to worry about a thing. Approaching her on the ground, he says he will purify her body immediately. Suddenly, Joseph's body stops moving, becoming completely frozen. Unable to move, he wonders what is happening to him. Coughing up blood, Joseph feels a sudden intense pain in his chest. As blood drips onto the floor, Ju-young explains what's going on. He reminds him that, as he said before, he's very good at hitting pressure points. He concludes that Joseph's blessed body is still susceptible to damage. With a mocking tone, Joseph notes that Ju-young can barely even stand. Looking at the control panel, Ju-young says his own pain is nothing. He adds that it doesn't compare to the pain his friend felt. Approaching the fallen Joseph, he says he already knows what he's going to do. With an improvised knife, he declares that a criminal like Joseph deserves punishment. Picking up a bottle of alcohol, he says Joseph needs to be castrated once and for all. With the bottle in hand, he states that the punishment can be either physical or chemical. Looking at the girl, Ju-young calls her name in a low voice. In a restaurant, she thanks him for dinner and asks about the budget. He then asks if she's upset, but she says that's not it. Looking around, she says she was just watching the other people. She adds that it seems like everyone in this place has a mother. Hearing her comment, he falls silent for a moment, looking thoughtful and distant. Annoyed, he says he doesn't have a mother either and asks if she's making fun of him. A nearby boy comments to his mother that he doesn't have a mom. Staring at her, he replies that he's not having any problem with the situation. She then explains that her mother promised to come back for her one day. She then asks him if he knows why she got a tattoo. Showing the phrase, the tattoo says she will keep waiting for her. With a smile, she says she'll wait for her mother, no matter how long it takes. Back on the bus, Ju-young moves forward to protect the girl from danger. Seeing the tattoo, he tells the girl to hang in there and not give up. Kneeling, she says that it shouldn't take too long. With a knife in his hand, he says he's going to make sure of one important thing. Holding a bottle, he prepares an object for the attack he's planning. With the object in hand, he says the criminal won't touch anyone else. Grabbing his foot, Joseph asks about the disgusting hands he mentioned. Throwing an object at him, Joseph says he's trying to do the right thing. With a blow to the head, he says it doesn't matter anymore at this point. With the impact, the bottle falls to the bus floor. He then asks him to drop the devout act, if he wouldn't mind. Coughing up blood, he realizes he has severe internal bleeding. Even injured, he wonders if Ju-young still doesn't understand the situation. Warning him about the injuries, he says that moving will only hurt him more. With a series of blows, he attacks Joseph with all his strength. Correcting the other man, he says his blows will hurt him a lot more. With a clenched fist, he says they'll find out who's stronger then. In an exchange of blows, the two attack each other with great force and speed. The fight continues, with both sides trading blows without stopping for a moment. Screaming in pain, Joseph says his body can't take much more. In that case, the girl braces herself for what might happen next. He then warns that he'll just use her as a human shield against him. Scoffing, Ju-young asks if he's going to use a hostage as a last resort. With a swift blow, he lunges forward and hits him before he can react. The impact throws Joseph to the ground with great force, knocking him out for good. He then says it took him a while to adjust to his opponent's size, but he adds that it's nothing compared to the man he faced. Lying on the floor, Joseph groans in pain, completely defeated and powerless. Lying defeated, Joseph suddenly laughs, leaving Ju-young confused. He then asks what's so funny, not understanding the situation. Pointing at the girl, he says he has videos of all the crimes. He then asks if it wouldn't be funny if her mother received the videos. He continues, saying he can't wait to see her reaction when she finds out. With a smile, he says she'll find out her daughter blackmailed people. After a moment of silence, he waits for Ju-young's response. Challenging Joseph, he tells him to try it and see what happens. Reciting a list, he reveals all the charges Joseph has against him. He then warns that these are all the charges that haven't surfaced yet. Threateningly, he says that if Joseph tries anything, the police will know everything. With a weapon in his hand, he asks if he sees how it's done. He then adds that this is how you really blackmail someone. Surprised, Joseph asks how he got the weapon, but he's cut off. With a blast, the weapon hits Joseph head-on, electrocuting him on the spot. He then says he had already warned him what would happen. With the weapon in his hand, he ensures he'll never touch anyone again. With a smile, he says Joseph won't be able to use that again. Lying on the floor, Joseph wonders what kind of castration that was. Turning around, Yuna calls out Ju-young's name. Running toward him, she asks if he's okay after the fight. Apologizing, she says he got hurt because of her and blames herself. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he tells her to worry about herself. He then asks why she didn't tell him she was being blackmailed. Stammering, she clasps her hands, not knowing how to answer him. She asks how he found her, and he says it was because of a habit. He explains that she always twirls her hair when she wants to hide something. Saying he should have realized, he apologizes for not noticing sooner. Seeing a scratch, she says he's hurt and needs to take care of it. He then says he can just put a bandage on it, and she calls him reckless. Looking at her, he asks her to promise not to do something so dangerous again. With a serious look, he asks if she agrees not to take such risks anymore. Surprised by the request, she stares at him in silence for a long moment. With a smile, she agrees to his request and says it's okay with her. Suddenly, a loud engine noise startles them both, and they look to the side. Breaking the window, a man at the wheel calls the couple lovebirds. He then says the two of them are too cute together, and that it bothers him. In a mocking tone, he says he's very jealous of them. The engine noise continues, and Ju-young wonders what's going on. He then asks why the prisoner is suddenly starting the car. With his foot on the pedal, he says he's going to step on it anyway and accelerate. Charging forward, he says, "This is for all the single people in the world." Shouting in anger, he says he hates couples and he's going to destroy them. With a loud roar, the bus accelerates at full speed. Gangsters have several ways of getting rid of bodies. Some methods include burying them in concrete, dumping them in the ocean, or burning them. To destroy the evidence, all these methods are quite effective. Then Gang Chan-ju explains they don't need to worry about that. According to him, the Sky Dragon likes to keep everything fresh. Revealing several bodies, he says they can be reused if needed. He then asks the tied-up man if he has any last words. He yells that the gang won't last long. Continuing his warning, he says someone will take them all down. Afterward, he throws the man into the water, wishing him a nice trip. As the body sinks, he just watches in silence. Seeing his phone ring, he walks over and answers the call. He introduces himself as Gang Chan-ju from the Dragon Gang. On the other end of the line, someone gives him some information. Hearing what was said, he just asks if it's really true. Not understanding, he wonders what's happening over there. Inside a bus, the prisoner speeds up, shouting, "It's for freedom." Going full speed, he aims the vehicle at the gate. With a smile, the prisoner tells them to brace for a maneuver. Breaking through the structure, the bus smashes into the compound. After the crash, the vehicle finally stops amidst the wreckage. Worried, he asks the girl if she's okay, and she says yes. Furious, he yells at the prisoner, saying they could have been hurt. Getting closer, the prisoner whispers something. Then he points to a guard and yells for the young man to run. Pushing the two of them out, he tells them to get off the bus quickly. Once outside, someone asks if the cops are gone. Explaining the plan, he says they successfully framed the guy. Boasting about the situation, he claims the plan was perfect. Running towards the other one, he tells him to say goodbye to his savior. With a smile, he tells the two lovebirds to have fun. Watching the scene, Ju-young seems to be processing what just happened. Ju-young tells Yunha that the nun must be looking for her. Asking him to wait, she starts searching her pockets for something. Then she says she can't believe she almost forgot. Handing him something, she says he might want to keep it. In his hands, he sees she just gave him a keychain. Ju-young starts to remember where he got that keychain. Remembering the past, they were all at an arcade, shouting directions at the claw machine. Showing she got 3, the girl surprises everyone with her skill. Encouraging the other, they say Ju-young needs to get a teddy bear too. Then, the bear keychain appears between their faces. She then suggests that they can each have a teddy bear. Saying it's perfect for them, she calls them the Bear Family. With a smile, she simply asks them to think about it. She says that as long as they have these, They'll always be together, no matter where. Stuttering a little, the other girl calls out Daeon's name. Then a boy tells her to stop being so cheesy, but the other one likes it. Back in the present, he keeps a firm grip on the small bear keychain. Then, a memory surfaces of her asking a question. With a smile, she asks him if they don't look alike. Back in the present time, he stares at the keychain in his hands. She explains she found it while cleaning Daeon's room. Remembering the promise, he recalls they would always be together with these. According to her, the keychain was on the desk, in plain sight. Another memory appears, with her asking again if they don't look alike. Smiling, he replies that it's the most stubborn bear he's ever seen. Saying she has to go, she says goodbye and starts walking away from him. Suddenly breaking into a run, she leaves him behind without any further explanation. Confused, he wonders aloud why she's in such a hurry. Fiddling with her hair, she says she couldn't confess to him. As she runs, she states that she tried to be a good friend until the very end. As she meets the nun, she asks them not to be mad about her feelings. Inside the prison, someone asks if everyone heard the big news. Behind bars, a man says the religious guy lost something important. One of the officers questions where exactly he aimed that gun. Overhearing the conversation, the other prisoner asks what he's doing there. He replies that he messed up because he wanted a room of his own too. Then the man in the suit prepares to ask the next question. From inside solitary confinement, he wants to know how they got him out. Remembering the warning, he says the whole area is monitored by cameras. He reveals the man also gave him a gun and classified information. Impressed by it all, he finally asks who this mysterious man is. With a growing smile, the man just remains mysterious about his identity. Saying he won't tell yet, he claims he has proven himself. Agreeing to the proposal, he simply says that's fine. Celebrating the new alliance, the other guy starts shadowboxing. Then he asks them to explain exactly how they plan to help in this situation. Waiting for an answer, he stands in front of the two cells. Hearing nothing back, he starts to find the silence strange. Looking down, he calls out to the guy, getting suspicious. Realizing the situation, he sees the man has simply fallen asleep. With his back to the cell, he just watches his new ally. With a serious look, he stares at the window and sees the full moon. Clutching the keychain tightly, he seems to be thinking about something important. Switching to a forest, the night seems calm and quiet. Then, a sports car speeds down the road. Getting out of the vehicle, a woman says it was a long drive. Introduced as Hee-Won Yu, she complains that she'll never understand a certain decision. Arriving at the mansion, she questions the reason for building it on a mountain. Walking through the hall, she says he could have owned a skyscraper. Reaching a giant door, she considers him a very peculiar man. Upon entering, she says excitedly that she heard the boss wanted to see her. Then she apologizes, looking a bit surprised by the scene. Seeing the destroyed room, she notices pieces of the floor scattered everywhere. She then comments that she didn't know he was training right now. Serving tea, Gang Chanju informs her that he's almost finished. He asks how her trip was, and she compliments the fresh air. Smiling, he says he's glad to hear it. Then he turns and asks Gang Chanju to tell him what he's found. Bringing new information, he reveals it's about Ju Yong. With a serious expression, he just listens to the news attentively in silence. In Gang Ryong's grand mansion, the night is calm and silent. Near the lake, the water wheel turns slowly under the moonlight. Gathered in the gazebo, he asks his subordinates for the latest news. Taking a sip, he asks what his son has been up to lately. Gang Chanju begins, explaining that Mr. Cha faced several big shots inside. He says some of them were seeds they had planted, but Cha destroyed them all. Commenting on his progress, he remarks that the boy is advancing very quickly. Hee-Won Yu adds that she thought some were promising, but he defeated them anyway. Gang Chanju says he must be proud of how skilled Ju-young has become. Crushing the cup, he says angrily that he expected much more from him. Gazing at the landscape, he states that he needs his son to fully blossom. He continues, saying that right now the boy isn't even a bud. To him, Ju-young is at most a sprout that has barely begun to show. Complaining about the result, he says defeating a few is not enough for the time he's been in there. Ending the conversation, he says that as his son, he should have done better. He then decides he will find a way to make him blossom faster. Switching to the prison, an inmate asks if they know what Yun-seok said. When asked who that is, the man replies that it's his father. Recalling the moment, he says his father called him useless. He goes on, saying his father hoped he'd get beaten up to straighten him out. Scoffing at the situation, he says this place has the opposite effect. Claiming no one there is redeemable, he suggests burning the whole place down. Since all is lost, he wants the world to remember him. He believes setting the prison on fire is the most sensible thing to do. Suddenly, a voice challenges him, telling him to try his luck. Leaning against the wall, a mysterious man encourages him to go ahead. With a serious look, he tells the man to start a fire immediately. Stuttering, the man says it was just a joke, obviously. Full of rage, he says that loud-mouthed idiots really piss him off. Remembering a classroom, students appear with their heads down. A man says that this is the right way to discipline someone. On the floor, Mr. Kim is then seen completely defeated. Entering the place, he says everyone there is all talk. Near the body, he tells the other one to keep his mouth shut. Showing immense anger, he says he just can't stand this situation. Exhaling cigarette smoke, he remains silent for a moment. Standing over the bodies, he reveals he can't stand these kinds of people. Back in the prison, an inmate approaches to call Yun-taek. Getting closer, he warns that he has news about the rookie, Ju-young. In another part of the prison yard, the area looks quite empty. He then asks if the rookie thinks he's the king of this jungle. Pointing in his direction, he promises to teach him his place. Changing scenes, a dark prison corridor is shown next. Looking up, a prisoner tells everyone to just watch the situation unfold. Bowed on the floor, the prisoners announce that he has finally returned. Shouting that he has been resurrected, they hear Ju-young asking them to stop. Sitting and reading a book, Gyum says he seems to be doing well. With a smile, he replies that the other guy seems fine too. Asking if anything happened, he hears that everything was closely monitored. Then he notices an unfamiliar face among the other prisoners. Saying he's never seen him, the other explains that he's new. Explaining about the rookie, he says he's a nice guy. Observing the new prisoner, he simply reflects on his arrival. Banging on the door, a guard appears and yells the cell number. Announcing work duty, he tells everyone to be ready in 5 minutes. Back at the mansion, the night continues its calm. The leader then begins to tell a story about something called a poison pot. According to him, the pot was filled with various venomous insects to fight. The last survivor would then possess an incredibly powerful and lethal venom. Explaining his plan, he says he placed venomous insects inside the detention center. He states that his son must consume as many powerful insects as possible. Questioning what he means, she asks for more details about the insects. Confirming her suspicion, he says he made sure to place one inside. Revealing one of the strongest, he asks if they are working outside. A prisoner reports that everyone from Ju-young's cell is working behind Building 5. Full of anger, he says it's irritating to see him act like he owns the place. Sitting on the wall, he decides he's had enough of this situation. His companion then asks what he intends to do about it. Without justifying his actions, he says he doesn't care if the other guy is the leader. Making his intentions clear, he shouts that the other guy will die today. Then, Ju-young's identification number appears covered in marks. Lying on the ground, Ju-young is seen with several injuries on his body. Seeing the scene, the other prisoners wonder what happened there. Suddenly, one of the prisoners screams and reacts as if he's been hit. Covered in paint, Ju-young regrets having tripped while another prisoner offers to help. Announcing that's all for today, the guard tells them to get ready for tomorrow. Returning tired, one of the prisoners complains about the pain and the forced labor. Back in the hallway, Ju-young stops when he notices something strange on the floor. Stopping with his friends, he asks why there's paint spilled there. Looking closer, he realizes that it's not actually paint. Completely shocked by the scene, the prisoner can't believe his eyes. Lying on the floor, they find the body of the leader from room 37. Focusing on the man's face, the scene shows him utterly defeated. Changing scenes, his father says he is eagerly waiting for his son. He wants to see him blossom and make him proud, and warns that his son must be very careful. He continues the warning, telling him not to let anyone cut him off at the root. According to him, this can't happen before the boy fully matures. At another point, Hai-Won-Yu asks about the venomous insects again. With a serious look, he assures her that he placed one of the strongest ones inside. Noticing the new guy, Ju-young comments that he had never seen him in the cell before. Calling out to his son, the father seems to have a well-defined plan in mind. Issuing the challenge, he says he wants to see if his son can survive this. Calling out to cell 36, the guard says there's a new inmate. Even though they already have a new guy, he tells them another one is on the way. Whispering, they comment on the newcomer's size and strangeness. One of the inmates then bets he must be some kind of gangster. Approaching curiously, one of them asks why he's in prison. They start speculating if it was for aggravated assault or even something worse. With a strange smile, the new guy just stares at them all in silence. Suddenly, he starts making a bird sound for no reason. Continuing with the sounds, he leaves all the prisoners completely confused. Just then, a sparrow flies in and lands calmly on his shoulder. Asking where the bird came from, they demand that he explain. He says he felt sorry for the animal, thinking its mother had abandoned it. Suddenly, the bird starts flying desperately all over the cell. Chasing the bird, the new guy asks it to come back to his hand. Watching the scene, they conclude he's just a total loser. Stopping suddenly, the new guy flashes a rather strange smile. Not understanding the reaction, Guillaume just stares at him, confused. Then the sparrow lands on a shelf near some notebooks. Revealing a photo and some drawings, the notebook shows a bit of the past. Looking down, the new inmate's face takes on a serious expression. Changing scenes, his father says he's eagerly waiting for his son. He continues, saying he wants to see his son flourish and make him proud. Then he warns that his son needs to be very careful about what happens. Back in the prison, one of the inmates screams, shocked by what he sees. Lying on the floor, they find the body of the leader of cell 37. The warning continues, saying not to cut it down before it's ripe. With a serious look, The new inmate seems focused on something. The narration ends, saying this can't happen before it ripens. In the shower, the inmates discuss the events after Ju-young left. One of them reveals they found 23 fractures on the man's body. An inmate mentions he'll be in the hospital for weeks and points out the lack of cameras. Questioning who could have done it, he keeps staring ahead, deep in thought. Meanwhile, the new guy turns and starts getting dressed in silence. Noticing something strange about him, Guillaume watches him suspiciously. Remembering when they were painting the building, he holds a paint roller. He recalls that the new guy disappeared for a short period of time. Then he remembers seeing a stain on the man's shoe. He's positive it wasn't any kind of paint. Thinking about the injuries, he suspects they're from the fight with the leader. Ju-young questions him for standing there, but he says he was just thinking. Starting to speak, he suddenly falls silent and looks to the side. Shouting and pointing at the new guy, he gets everyone's attention. Showing his body, the new guy reveals that it's covered in marks. With several injuries and cuts, he surprises all the other inmates. They ask what kind of life he's lived, but he just starts to talk. Scratching his head, he begins to explain how he got all those scars. He continues, saying it was his own father who did all of that. Hearing the revelation, Ju-young just stares at the new guy with a serious expression. Cutting to a flashback, a voice reminds the students about PE class. In the classroom, he laments that he'll need to borrow clothes to train. Pointing at Ju-young, a student yells for the others to look in that direction. Another classmate then asks if he hasn't heard what everyone's saying. The rumor is that his gangster father beats him all the time. The students say he's probably too scared to call the police. Back in the present, he stands silently under the shower water. In the bathroom, the inmates talk about the food and their time in prison. With little time left, the new guy asks if someone can lend him a towel. Seeing this, Guillaume watches intently without saying a word. With his back turned, the new guy simply continues to shower in silence. Ju-young also stays quiet, letting the water run over his scars. In the shower, the new guy approaches and asks him for some shampoo. Without hesitation, Ju-young simply hands the bottle to the man beside him. With a slight smile, the new guy just observes the situation in silence for a moment. Then he asks if Ju-young feels sorry for him because of his life story. Ju-young replies that he's in no position to feel sorry for anyone there. With a shaken expression, the new guy says both of their lives suck. He continues, saying that in his opinion, their lives are both just miserable. Turning to leave, Ju-young says he'll meet him outside later. Later, in the locker room, the new guy starts drying his hair with a towel. Approaching, he says he'd like to ask Ju-young something. Looking around, he asks where everyone else went. Ju-young explains that he sent them all back, but the new guy doesn't understand. Then he starts saying how strange the whole situation is. He says the weirdest part is both of them being here. Questioning the scars, he asks if it isn't strange they have the same marks. Standing in the locker room, the two of them stare at each other in silence for a moment. Trying to explain himself, the new guy is surprised by Ju-young's sudden lunge. With a powerful blow, he hits the new guy with everything he's got, without hesitation. Grabbing his neck, he slams him hard against the wall. Then he yells, telling him not to dare call it a coincidence. Pointing to his own marks, he says he knows exactly who made them. Revealing an image of Gang Ryong, he shows who gave him those scars. He says he didn't recognize him at first because of the missing tattoo. Accusing the new guy, he asks if Gang Ryong sent him to prison. Without answering, he remains pinned by Ju-young's hand on his throat. Furious, he tells the new guy to try and keep his mouth shut. Squeezing even tighter, Ju-young increases the pressure on his neck. With a challenging look, he doubts the silence will last for long. Back at the large mansion, the night remains silent and calm. Hee-won-yu then asks the boss if he liked the new recruits. Showing him the group of young men, she says she made sure to pick the good-looking ones. She goes on to say that they don't belong to anyone and have a lot of potential. Letting him know that the Sky Dragon is unaware, she gives him the freedom to do as he pleases. Understanding nothing, the young men just watch the situation with a bit of fear. Sitting in a chair, he remains silent, analyzing all the new recruits. With a smile, he asks what she meant by a lot of potential. Looking at the group, he states that they are all completely useless. He continues, saying he needs hunting dogs that can destroy their prey. Pointing to the biggest one of all, he says he'll take that one. Then he orders her to just throw all the others out immediately. Surprised by his decision, she complains that it took her a long time to gather them. Hearing a noise, he turns and notices a fight breaking out. On the ground, one of the boys attacks the bigger one as he screams in pain. With one strike, the boy shows all his strength and aggression. Impressed by the scene, the boss just watches everything with a slight smile. He then says that boy would make an excellent guard dog. Looking at the two on the floor, he says he will be their father. Back in the prison, he asks if the rookie was sent by Gang Ryong. Held by the neck, the rookie remains silent for a while. Annoyed by the lack of response, Ju-young tells him to shut up. Increasing the pressure, he squeezes the man's neck harder. He then doubts the rookie's silence will last much longer. Gripped by the neck, the rookie finally begins to explain. He reveals that he is just his master's hunting dog. Confused, Ju-young questions who this master he mentions could be. Noticing the lack of tattoos, he deduces that the rookie is not one of them. Completing his thought, he asks if he hasn't sworn loyalty to the dragon. Being choked, the rookie seems to be having a very hard time breathing. In a serious tone, Ju-young demands that he start talking immediately. He starts by asking why the rookie was placed in his cell. Then he continues, wanting to know the reason he attacked the leader. He questions why he still circles him, even with chances to attack. Pressing even harder, he demands to know why Gangryong sent him. Unable to speak, the rookie just remains held by the neck. The two stare each other down in the middle of the locker room, the tension thick in the air. With a sigh, the rookie seems to give in to Ju-young's pressure. Clenching his hand, he decides he'll handle the situation another way. With a determined look, he prepares to start a new confrontation. Ju-young starts by dragging him along the wall, then throws him hard against the locker room wall. Holding his jaw, the rookie refuses to speak. Ju-young says he's in a bad mood from being reminded of that man. With a furious look, he demands that the rookie start talking, but the rookie can't say a single word. Shouting, Ju-young orders him to speak what he knows once and for all. He just lets out a groan of pain, unable to answer the questions. With a dislocated jaw, he can't articulate any words to Ju-young. Lying on the floor, Ju-young realizes the rookie passed out from the blow. Holding the body, he wonders why the rookie didn't fight back. He begins to wonder what Gangryong really wants with all of this. Meanwhile, the little bird starts chirping non-stop in the middle of the cell. Near the window, the rookie feeds the bird some breadcrumbs. Irritated by the noise, an inmate throws something and tells him to stop. Ju-young watches the scene and tells himself that it doesn't make sense. He has been watching the rookie, but he hasn't seen anything suspicious in his behavior. Suddenly, one of the prisoners slips and falls in the cafeteria. With the tray falling, food gets all over the rookie's uniform. He just follows his routine, not responding to any of the provocations. Saying he's fine, he seems to be hiding his claws and teeth. The inmates offer him some food and a handkerchief to clean himself up. Ju-young refuses to believe he was sent there for no reason. Suddenly, someone throws water in his face without any warning. Turning around, the inmate asks if he's okay after what happened. Arguing among themselves, one says he wasn't even trying to hit him. With a serious expression, the rookie remains silent, watching everything. Changing scenes to nighttime, the prison building seems quiet. On a hill, the wind blows hard as the fog spreads. Holding a scythe, an inmate says he's going to end up killing someone out there. Complaining about the work, he finds it ridiculous to have to mow the lawn at night. Ju-young just tells them to finish the job quickly. Agreeing that it's strange, the other inmate keeps looking around. He wonders why they were called out for such a small task. Concluding that something is wrong, he remains suspicious of the whole situation. Mowing the lawn, he continues with the task assigned by the officer. Approaching one of the inmates, the rookie starts to ask a question. He asks if the man is close to Ju-young, leaving him confused. As he begins to speak, he seems to be preparing to do something. With a swift blow, he attacks the inmate without any warning. Commenting on their relationship, he says the two seem pretty close. Shouting, Ju-young runs in their direction, but is stopped in his tracks. Looking back, he sees one of the inmates down on the ground. Just then, he hears the scream of the last companion who was still standing. Running over, he wonders what is happening on that hill. Ready to attack, the rookie holds his scythe firmly. With the others already down, he says it's now too late. With a serious look, he asks if Ju-young has finally understood the situation. With a look of revelation, Ju-young questions the reason he was brought there. At the mansion, the full moon illuminates the night sky and the large estate. Panting, the rookie listens attentively to his master's words. He says his fangs are sharp enough to tear someone's throat out. With determination, he promises he will kill anyone for his father. Smiling, the boss says, of course he will do that for him. Revealing his plans, he says there is something he wants him to do. The first order is to infiltrate Ju-young's territory and ensure his isolation. He doesn't want any outsiders interfering with his plans. The second task is to watch Ju-young closely and find out who his allies are. The goal is to discover who his closest friends in prison are. Giving the last order, he prepares for the final part of the plan. He orders the rookie to kill them all in front of Ju-young. With his head down, he starts to process all the information. Questioning the motive, he asks if all of this is to make him stronger. Questioning the orders, he says their relationship is anything but normal. Turning around, the rookie asks how that was possible for him. According to him, that wound should have finished them both right then and there. Showing the pigskin, they mock him for believing it. Then the rookie reveals he knows exactly what Gangryong wants with all this. He says he wanted to see how far he would go to strengthen his son, but he didn't think the same method would be used again. Saying that it's repulsive, he shows he can't stand the situation. Filled with rage, he lands a heavy blow on the rookie's face. He yells that he just can't stand it all anymore. Remembering the abandonment, he says he had no reason to believe the man. A man apologizes, saying he can't throw his life away for him. At the orphanage, a man says the boy's negativity would affect the other children. Then, a broker offers to buy the boy, showing that the abandonment continued. Complaining about the boy, they say no one buys him because he's too skinny. Unsure of what to do, They suggest handing him over to the Korean Chinese. Suddenly, the sound of breaking chains catches their attention. With his own hands, he manages to break free from the chains that held him. Limping, he decides he'll do anything to avoid being discarded again. In the middle of the city, he stops to watch the lights and the movement. Hyun-yu recounts that he wandered the streets like a stray dog. She continues, saying she found him and took him to their boss. He concludes that this loyalty comes from the fear of being abandoned again. With a smile, she asks if he doesn't find all of this quite amusing. Speeding up the car, she says it's a battle between two boys. She finishes by saying they were both raised by Gang Ryong himself. The rookie says he didn't think he would use the same method again. Disgusted by the situation, he prepares to attack the man in front of him. With one blow, he shows all his anger and frustration with the plan. He screams that he just can't take any of it anymore. In the middle of the grass, the scythe is left behind after the charade. Ordering the others to get out, he tells them to call the officer immediately. They question the order, saying they could easily attack the rookie together. He explains they're on a chessboard created by Gang Ryong's orders. According to him, no one will care what happens there that night. He orders them to go get the officer to pick up the rookie's body. Elsewhere, a car speeds down the road at night. Questioning the outcome, he asks who she thinks will win the fight. She replies that both were raised and trained by the boss himself. Back on the hill, the two exchange blows in an intense battle. Sliding across the ground, he manages to dodge one of the rookie's strikes. With a quick counterattack, they both land hits on each other. He then lands another blow, showing off all his combat skill. Defending himself, the rookie also manages to land a hit on Ju-young. Preparing another attack, Ju-young gets ready to continue the intense fight. The two move quickly, showing the speed of their movements. Exchanging blows, they continue the battle on even terms. In the car, he comments that their techniques will be very similar. According to him, it'll be like they're looking at themselves in a mirror. Lighting a cigarette, she asks if he thinks they'll be evenly matched. The rookie yells that they are the same, highlighting their similarity. In a simultaneous strike, they both hit each other hard in the middle of the hill. With a smirk, Ju-young says they are not alike at all. Grabbing the rookie's arm, he begins to apply immense force. With a crack, he breaks the rookie's arm without any mercy. With a shove, he throws the rookie away with great force. He says they were taught by the same man, but there's a difference. Slamming a fist into the ground, he yells that the rookie is not on his level. The blow hits the rookie's face, who feels the full impact of the attack. The rookie tries to recover from the blow. Still in pain, he lets out a low groan before reacting. Grabbing Ju-young's arm, he prepares for a counterattack. Praising the training, he squeezes Ju-young's arm hard. Questioning the technique, he asks if brute force will make up for the lack of it. Ju-young warns it's no use, but the rookie keeps squeezing. With another loud snap, Ju-young shows the attack didn't affect him. Screaming in pain, the rookie bites down hard on Ju-young's hand. Still in great pain, he keeps a firm hold on the hand. Ju-young hits him with a kick, sending him flying, and says he doesn't care what it takes to win. He says his only purpose is to follow his father's orders. Revealing his mission, he says he's there to finish Ju-young. Grabbing the rookie's face, he prepares for a new attack. With several blows, he unleashes all his anger on the rookie's body. He yells at the rookie to never mention that man in front of him again. Finishing the attack, he says it's better not to mention what shouldn't be said. Fallen on the ground, the rookie looks completely defeated after the barrage. The hill falls silent, with only the two of them left at the end. In the car, she replies that she agrees with her companion's opinion. She says she doesn't think it's possible for the orphan to beat Mr. Cha. He adds that this is only true if the fight is unarmed. Showing a lighter, he says things can change easily. He continues, saying everything changes when someone gets a weapon. Back on the hill, some objects are seen lying on the ground. With the scythe in hand, he prepares to continue the confrontation. Remembering the past, he says his father told him something. According to him, his father said he had a talent for handling weapons. Giving him a knife, his father trained him to be a specialist. He continues, saying he earned every cut on his body. Advancing, he approaches Ju-young with a very determined look. With focused eyes, he prepares for the next move in the fight. He says he got the scars learning to use a blade with his father. Advancing with the scythe, he says he doesn't care about strength. He continues, saying he also doesn't care about Ju-young's skill. Stumbling on a rock, he loses his balance and almost falls to the ground. He only cares that Ju-young is his father's biological son. Sitting on a rock, he says that today, Ju-young will die by his hands. Spinning two weapons, he prepares for the final blow of the fight. He says everything will happen exactly as his father intended. Ju-young says he already warned him. The rookie is left completely confused. Ju-young tells him to get that name out of his mouth mouth if he doesn't want a painful death. He says that's 4 times the rookie has called that man father. He asks if the rookie really thinks the man who brutalized him didn't also teach Ju-young to use a blade, and that weapon he picked up will come in handy. Ju-young says that Saw will tear through him painfully. With that, he says he hopes the rookie is excited to be cut into 4 pieces. He starts explaining, telling a story about Japan's greatest swordsman. Known for winning over 60 battles, he used a special technique. This technique, called the twin blades, was extremely powerful and lethal. Feared by many, the technique was devastating in sword combat. The movements were fast and unpredictable, making defense very difficult. With quick strikes, they trade blows with their improvised weapons. Ju-young realizes the rookie is using the twin blades technique. The speed of the movements and the unpredictability of the blades surprise him. On top of that, his anxiety about facing 2 weapons at once increases. Blocking one of the strikes, he realizes the danger of the situation. With a focused gaze, he concludes that this is more dangerous than he thought. The 2 move closer, showing that the battle is far from over. As they trade blows, their weapons clash with a loud metallic clang. He says that a saw is just a tool for cutting wood. Saying it's not something you use in a fight, he prepares a counterattack. Fallen on the ground, he says the technique was passed down by many swordsmen. With a smile, he says a saw can't replicate an ancient technique. Since he was a child, he has trained his movements and honed his skills. With 1 strike, he hits Ju-young with precision and great force. He reveals that he hones his swordsmanship with the blades his father gave him. Showing the vital points, he indicates the carotid and brachial arteries. He also points to the heart and the radial and subclavian arteries. According to him, all of these are vital points that lead to a quick end. He explains that in real life, opponents fight back. To minimize the opponent's chances, he teaches to attack repeatedly. He says not to hesitate when taking another person's life. Threatening the boy, he warns that a useless hunting dog is discarded. Announcing the end of the lesson, he tells everyone to rest for the exam. Suddenly, he hears one of the boy's stomachs rumbling loudly. Holding a frying pan, he calls him the rookie his father found on the street. Offering food, he says he made it for himself, but is willing to share. He reveals that kimchi fried rice is the only dish he can make perfectly. With his stomach growling, the boy stays silent, staring at the food. Eating with his hands, he hears the other one say he must have been hungry. The other boy says he's probably there because he doesn't have a family. Smiling, he tells him to think of him as a brother and to ask if he wants more. Suddenly, the boy attacks him with a precise strike without hesitation. With several blows, he finishes the other one off without any pity or remorse. Watching the scene, the boss simply analyzes the results of the exam. With a satisfied smile, he says the boy passed the test. He explains that the other one was eliminated because he hesitated during the exam. According to him, only those with a brutal nature can become his dogs. Tossing 2 weapons, he prepares to give the next order. Holding the weapons, the boy braces himself for what's next. He says that from now on, these 2 swords will be his fangs. Remembering being abandoned, he recalls being left by everyone he ever knew. But he says his father took him in and gave him a new chance. With the weapon in his hand, he feels grateful for the life he was given. Trading blows, he says he considers him his father in every sense of the word. With a quick move, Ju-young dodges one of the rookie's strikes. In shock, he reveals that he has already ended many people's lives. He continues, saying he has killed both strangers and people close to him. He reveals he did it all because of his father's orders. Looking at Ju-young, he says that today, he will join his list. With a strike, he warns that he will sink his fangs into his neck. He prepares for the attack, showing all his determination to win. Suddenly, he stops and says that this all feels very strange. With a confused look, he doesn't understand what's happening. Trading blows, he says it's obvious Ju-young is his prey. He continues, saying that even predators break under so much pressure. Questioning the situation, he asks why Ju-young seems to be hunting him. He says it feels like Ju-young is the one hunting him here. Remembering a lesson, he hears his father telling him to go for it. His father says that 1 blow should be more than enough. According to him, it's useless to swing the blade without hitting a vital point. He continues, saying to remember it's not about the number of strikes. The secret is to focus on avoiding fatal wounds and wait for an opening. When the opponent's armor cracks, that's the time to strike with precision. He says that when the chance appears, you must attack without hesitation. His father warns him to never forget one important rule. If the blade doesn't taste the opponent's blood, something will go wrong. He focuses his gaze, preparing for the right moment to strike. Breathing heavily, he waits for the perfect opportunity to strike. With a swift blow, he prepares to end the fight. Trading blows, the weapons clash with a loud metallic sound. With a quick move, the rookie advances for a new attack. With his eyes focused, Ju-young prepares for the next move. Realizing the strategy, he notices the rookie is waiting for something. He says it seems the rookie is waiting for an opportunity. Dodging the strikes, he keeps waiting for an opening to attack. Saying it's no use, he readies himself for the final blow. He says this is the end of the line for his opponent. Finding the opening, he prepares to strike the vital point. With a determined look, he focuses on the rookie's weak spot. With a quick strike, he hits the rookie with precision and force. The blow hits its mark, leaving gashes in the ground and grass. He reveals he was waiting for the rookie's big final attack. Agreeing with the rookie, he says that using a saw isn't comfortable. With a frustrated look, Ju-young says that if he had a sword, he could have cut his neck. Advancing slowly, Ju-young approaches the rookie with a dark look. Remembering the lesson, he hears that the blade must taste the opponent's blood. He says that even so, there are some advantages to using a saw. With a smile, he says to imagine the jagged edges on the skin. He continues, telling him to imagine the saw scraping and cutting through bone. Under the moonlight, he says to imagine the vessels and nerves getting tangled in it. He says that's something a sword could never do. With a swift move, Ju-young ends the confrontation once and for all.